So, hey guys, welcome to our first INAV Fixed Wing Group Talk Round live stream. So, I'm your technical host
hey
today,
guys,
and welcome to our first INAV Fixed Wing Group Talk Round live stream. So, it's my first try, so I should not forget to mute it. And yeah, we have Glenn Tho here in the live stream right now, Darren Lyons, and of course Steve. Steve will be our main host today. I do the technical stuff and manage the stream. And Steve, please take over.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Hey, everybody, welcome. This is exciting. This is a long time in the coming. We've been talking about doing this, Mark and I, for about the last, I don't know, 6-8 months now. So we got to it for the 1-year anniversary. On the 18th of this month, we will be celebrating 1 year. Now, as the group got started, what happened was it was exciting. Actually, on December 18th, we opened it up, and within about, I'd say about a day, we had 250 members. It was going crazy. And there was a lot of enthusiasm in the group, but we were looking for more technical information. And when Mark came along, it was really a big help for the group as far as he helped really document everything. But one of the problems he came across is when we started figuring out how the modes worked was how do you get really, well, the problem I ran into personally was every single time I add a new mode to the radio, it would be great for one model, but when I got to another model, I didn't put those modes on. And so I just wanted one master mode for the FR Sky radio systems for OpenTX. And I came to Mark and I said, we started talking about what would be the ideal thing. And we were throwing it back and forth for probably 2 or 3 weeks. We threw it out to the group. People threw in their suggestions. And then when we finally came up with something, we threw it over to the group again asking, hey, could someone program this? And this is when Darren steps up and says, oh, yeah, I can do this. And, you know, Mark and I were expecting something very simple, not too complicated. And Darren took the ball and ran with it and put something together that is so impressive that I really wanted it to be the very first thing that everybody sees when we start this chat today. This OpenTX for INAV fixed wing is probably like the most, if you don't have your own personal system going right now, this is the thing you definitely should get. So Darren, can you please walk us through it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as Steve says, this is really designed for people new to INAV to get them going as quickly as possible. If you've got your own system, then you get sort of stuck in your ways. But if you're a new person, this will absolutely get you started quicker. And as you grow, you can grow it to your own personal tastes. Right, so I'll go over the basic features.
Awesome.
Of what we've got involved in it. I'll try and show you on my Tyrannus, but as you can see, it's a bit modified.
Yeah, you have knobs up on the left-hand side.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I actually have this, which is a 6-position knob, which I use for my modes. So this switch here is the switch that usually goes here.
Gotcha.
So what we have is a basic set of flight modes available. So we have the angle, acro, and horizon for your basics of stabilities. There's a manual mode for tuning and a cruise mode, return to home, and position hold, which if you're just starting out, that's absolutely plenty. You don't really want to overkill. You're probably not getting into missions and all this sort of stuff, but it will get you started really quickly. So we've added a few features for safety. So you can't arm unless the stick is low. There's also the auto trim and auto tune settings, which is on this knob here. And we've added a couple of extra little tweaks on this momentary switch. There's a flight timer, which will start counting down as soon as you fly. So it's actually linked to the throttle. If you just do a quick flick on the switch, it will reset the timer, but if you hold it down, it will actually enter the OSD menu in INAV, so you can change your VTX power and bands if you've got sort of tramp RC, or I can't remember what the immersion one's called off the top of my head, but smart audio. So if you've got any of that stuff, you can get in there and change it. You think you can change your PIDs as well.
If you'd like to, I actually have one of the radios I can grab here really quick and just run through it if it has all the voices and everything.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it might be easier on your transmitter because, as I say, mine's a bit modified. But there are a few warning beeps on there if you leave things on. Yeah, it's quite a new system.
Pulling out the box right now, so here we go. All right.
Just for your information, guys, I just added Jesse to the call.
Oh, Jesse's here?
Yeah, wait a second. It's ringing. He will be here in a
second. All
second.
Right, cool. I got throttle.
There we go.
Okay. So here's the radio. Okay, you guys see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to take it through. I guess the problem is that my microphone actually has a speaker. The microphone's next to my headset, so I'll let you hear the voices.
Acro. Cruise. Manual. Acro. Horizon. Angle. Horizon.
Okay, so I'll take it through them one at a time. Basically what happens in the radio, let me see if I'm holding this up right. So the first one is, the way we set this up, when Mark and I were discussing this, was we ended up having everything with more control on the bottom and less control on the top. So at the very bottom on the right-hand side is manual. You flip up to the middle, then you've got control of these three switches, which is, so the lowest one is angle, actually acro mode. Then we go into horizon, and then we go into angle mode. And then after that, you have a few switches as far as you have return to home. You can hear that. And then you also have position hold, which is awesome. Now, the idea is when you use this is that the way I typically fly is I will we'll start off in either acro mode or horizon. Those are both really great modes to take off in. And then if I want to just save energy, I'll put it into 3D cruise. That way I've noticed you can really milk a battery. But if you want to be lazy, what you can do is return to home on when you want to turn around, or you could turn on position hold, which will start to turn the aircraft around and bring it back to where you want to go. One of the other features that I think is really important is that on this side right here, the little switch is where the toggle. It's a three-way switch, and those are for the OSDs. So OSD 1 is very top, 2 is middle, and 3 is bottom. And this is really brilliant as far as the way I work, is I put my satellites and all the stuff, all the gauges and stuff that I want to look at every once in a while on the first screen. I fly in the second screen most of the time, and the third screen is my addition screen. And that is where I start to look at things like, I don't know, I'll try a new little gadget out, and I'll see if I like it or not, if I want to add it to the second screen. So that's my 2 cents. I think this is brilliant. I think this is one of the main reasons why, if you're just getting started with INAV, this is a no-brainer. If you don't have a Taranis radio system, or what radio systems besides Taranis can we use?
You can use it on the Taranis X9, QX7. You can use it on Jumper T16. Someone else, I believe, is using it on a T12. It will work on Horus. The only thing we've not got it on at the moment is the X-Lite system, but hopefully I can borrow a unit and try and get a version for X-Lite soon. But that's, for the main Taranis models or free sky models plus the 2 jumpers, you can quite happily use this on.
So the X-Lite system, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a new system that came out from FR Sky, and so you have the X-Lite, for example, which our friend David Story loves. It looks like a video game controller, but it's missing a lot of switches.
Yeah, that's the main problem. Is it's so limited in the number of switches. There goes a mini track.
Something's falling over.
Yeah. But the main problem with converting to the X-Lite, I mean, for the QX7 we had to lose a little bit of functionality, not a lot, but I can't remember what we actually, no, it's just a trim and tilt. There's a trim and tilt version as well. Pan and tilt, sorry.
Pan and tilt.
So that's not on the QX7 just because of the limits of the hardware. And the X-Lite, again, is more limited. The main problem with converting to the X-Lite.
So what you have is you have a radio that looks just like this. It's one of the new FR Sky radios. And basically, it has a 9-in X9 Lite or something like that.
Yeah, there's the X9 Lite, which I've not actually got my hands on one, but the QX, I'd imagine the QX7 version should work with that.
The reason I bring that up is that that's a cheaper radio system, or it used to be. It used to be like $59 when it first came out, but I think it's like goes on sale all the time for about $80. And people will say, "Well, I can for $80 I can buy this," and then the QX7 is $30 more. Why would I want to buy that? It's because it has all the switches on there, and a lot of the switches that we're going to need. If you look at it on the radio system, we use this switch. We don't use this switch. We use this switch, this switch, this switch, this switch. And we use this switch, but not this switch. So these two switches are free. And then we use this knob right here, but we don't use this knob. And we don't use the sliders.
No, the sliders are only for the pan and tilt versions. But,
perfect. Perfect. Awesome. That sounds great. So, and as I understand it as well, the new jumper system now has its own OpenTX build. OpenTX is supporting jumper. Yes,
from what I've seen on other YouTube channels, and the T16 is now getting a decent OpenTX build, or I shouldn't say decent. It was decent anyway, but it's getting an official build now. But even using the jumper TX, it was still compatible.
Okay, so when you want to use this system, people are going to ask, where do I find this thing at? And we have it located in our Facebook group under the file system. So there's a zip file that has 2 P's in it. When you download it, you have to take one of the P's out, right?
Yeah, that's Facebook. Can't do anything about that.
Read the manual, because there's a great manual you wrote in there, and it explains everything. It's a pretty simple setup. I use this literally. Every single INAV plane I have has this. It's just a brilliant build. You're going to love it once you get used to it.
Yeah, as you say, the manual is. I've put them in the files. The manual's separate as well. So if you're unsure that it's right for you, you can download just the manual and have a read, and then hopefully you'll think that's great. Download the whole file. But yeah, the manual takes you through step by step, what's on there, what the warnings are, how to install it. It's even got the codes at the end for putting into OpenTX to set the modes up. So everything you need is in the manual. And yeah, the only thing I would add is if you have this set up on your Tyrannus, it's all you really need. If you have multiple models, you can bind them to the same OpenTX model, so you don't need to change models on the Tyrannus at all. You just need to plug in your battery in the other plane, and it will still work with this setup.
That's a really important point. And what I can tell you is that I put in about 30 models with the build, and I gave all the models a different name. And after about the 30th model, the radio said, we're out of memory, so you have to cut back on your models. And so what you're saying is you only need one model.
Yeah, literally on mine, I have 3 INAV models. So there's one for L9R, one for R9 system, and one for Crossfire. So you only really need a different model for the different receiver types or the different transmission types.
You just use the same model.
Yeah.
And you just bind to all your different planes, so you can have 100 planes.
Yeah, it's all just down to the bind menu. So if I show you on my Tyrannus, you literally see if I can get this on screen. The top 3 models are just INAV. So all my INAV planes are bound to one of those 3 models, depending on the receiver. Because obviously stuff like the Crossfire uses different telemetry to the R9. The L9R hasn't got any telemetry, so it's just subtle differences with the communication system. But if all your models are, say, on L9R or on R9, you can just use that one model for all your planes.
Perfect.
And it will work.
Or XM Plus is what I use a lot of. Or,
yeah, I mean,
I'm
the XM Plus, that would probably, go on the same settings as like a X4R or anything like that. So
I think we just added somebody. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
It's Jason.
Jason! Wake up, it's 5 a.m. in Australia.
Yeah, it is.
Crazy dude.
Welcome to the group. Jason is an expatriate of the United States who moved to Australia. So I'm going to hear if you have an American accent or if you have an Australian accent by now.
No, it's still American.
A bit of a
very American.
Is Jesse around, or is he still trying to figure his way in? Or?
Well, I'm here as far as I know.
Oh, I hear you. I just don't see.
Well, I had to go reset my Microsoft account to get into Skype, and my boy was going to freak out that I logged him out of Xbox, so I had to go take care of
that. Awesome. Well, one thing I wanted to get into really quickly, but thank you very much, Darren, for the explanation of our INAV setup for FR Sky and all the OpenTX platforms. One thing I wanted to get into is we are going to lose one of our guests probably pretty soon, so I want to get a couple minutes just to chat with him. Just as I mentioned that, he gets up and walks away. There he is. Glenn, Glenn's been one of the more interesting members of the community because he documented his struggle from the time he got, what was it? It was a Maytech F405 board that didn't work. And he had a couple weeks of trying to figure out how to get the F405 board to work, and remember that. And then the first video he put out was, he had his mic on as he's flying the plane, and so he launches the plane. It was AR wing, and he launches it, and it goes out on auto launch for about, I don't know, a couple hundred meters, and then all of a sudden he switches it into return to home, and you really hit the church on the way back in. I was worried about the stained glass window.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that the church was there. I'm not sure why they built it there 350 years ago.
Just to annoy you.
Yeah. So I came from quads. So 5 years ago, I met a bunch of guys locally, and got my first 5-inch quad, and just couldn't believe that you could actually fly something while looking through a set of goggles, and it just blew my mind, and that was it. I was hooked, instantly hooked. So for maybe 5 years or so, I was building and flying quadcopters, and they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until my last quad that I built before I got into planes was this thing. So this is a 10-inch propeller prop, 10-inch props. It's got 3515 motors on it, runs 6S, and it's a bit of an awesome beast. But what I tended to find was that when I was flying quads, because I'm pretty old and my eyesight's not so great, that the guys were all doing this really fancy acro stuff, and I was just flying low level across the fields, like a meter above the ground with this great big quad, thinking, this is amazing. And then one day I was on YouTube, and you know how you get distracted and you get drawn into something else? Well, I saw my first video of a wing, and I thought, hey, I fly my quad like that guy flies his wing. I need to get a wing.
The famous mini drag video, right?
Yeah, the famous mini drag video of the guy flying over his farm. Or maybe put the link up on the group. Maybe that would be a good idea, Steve. Maybe we should have a thread where people can put the video up that inspired them to fly a wing. Yeah, it'd be some quite entertaining videos, no doubt. But mine was a guy, I think in America, flying a mini drag over his farm, inverted, upside down, low level. And I thought, right, okay, I'm going to get a wing. I knew nothing about wings, servos, planes, anything like that. So obviously YouTube was the place to go. And I decided to buy an AR wing. So
this is the first one, the famous first one.
This is the second one.
The second one, oh yeah, Agatha. Well, the first one was Agatha.
Yeah, first one was Agatha. This is Aria, the Game of Thrones inspired design, and as you said, Steve, the first flight, I was already pretty used to beta flight. So if you're used to beta flight and you fly quads, then getting into INAV is not that difficult. The principles are all pretty much the same. I guess the only difference really is servos. What the hell is a servo? This little machine that moves this little arm. And anyway, having found the group, the INAV group, and finding Mark and all of you guys, that really helped me to get my head around what this thing was and how it was going to work. So all of this stuff like, setting up the PIF controller, I understood the principles of that, and wiring up the flight controller was exactly the same as all the flight controllers on beta flight, pretty much. So got this thing built, understood the principles of auto launch and return to home. And as you say, I launched the plane, didn't press return to home, it shot off, the video feed stopped, I was in blackness in the goggles, this thing was flying away from me at 1,000,000 miles an hour because I had it on full throttle. I had this palpitation in my chest thinking this plane is just going to go and go and go until it runs out of battery. It could get miles and miles and miles away. And then I remembered the return to home button and I flicked it and it started arcing back round. It was going full throttle. I don't know why it was losing altitude, but it was losing altitude, losing altitude. I was panicking and I couldn't fly line of sight. Never flown line of sight. So it's circling around me, losing altitude, and luckily for me, the crash was on my side, not the church side, and it hit a tree, and I recovered it. And well, if you see the video, you can see that that's a real video. I was really panicking, and I got the plane back and decided that probably the best thing to do would be to really try and understand what this thing was about. So, kind of asked loads of questions, and eventually got the auto launch to work. Figured out that I could actually set return to home before I launch. And so my plane, if you watch any of my videos, it flies straight up 10 seconds and then loiters. And that's great for someone that can't fly line of sight because you don't have anything to worry about. You can have, you can get your goggles on, you can mess around with things, you can set your DVR, do all of that stuff. And that's exactly what I do even now. So yeah, I progressed from that position, and I can't describe the feeling I get when I fly a wing. It's nothing like a quad. It's I think the thing about a wing is it's always moving forward, and that's the exciting thing for me. It's just this constant moving forward. And of course, what I wanted to do was what I couldn't do with a quad is I wanted to fly inverted for a long distance. And the first time I turned the thing upside down and flew upside down and kept it going for maybe 5-10 seconds, well, that just blew my mind. So yeah, if you're into quads and you want to move into wings, the transition is not that difficult. The difficult parts are the servo parts. INAV is very similar to beta flight, and you can get a lot of fun. So I built the AI wing, then I built the Dart XL, went over to Germany, and had a great time.
Visited Mark, right?
Yeah. Had a great time. He taught me how to drink, how to stay up till 4 a.m., how to eat breakfast.
And I showed you misery.
Yeah, so that's my little story in terms of how I made the transition. The truth is that since I got into wings, I've flown my quad maybe only 3 or 4 hours. I've just been completely immersed in this hobby. Built the Dart XL for long range, started doing a bit of long range stuff. But for me, personally, I love proximity flying. I love going fast. I love flying upside down. So I've just built this, which is partway through the process. So this is my little 250G. And I built this particularly just to fly proximity and through small gaps. And I've even become compliant. Look at that. I've even got my registration. So yeah, for me, moving forward, my ultimate goal is to get the plane I started. Was inspired me by the first video, which is the mini drac. I've just ordered one of those, and that's my winter build. So hopefully in the spring, get a 6S mini drac upside down for a couple of minutes, a meter off the ground.
So one of the questions I have for you is, a lot of people start off, or a lot of people come in from the quad side. We get a lot of interest in quad pilots. Jason's actually a quad guy himself, who came in to the wing side. And I guess you guys really like your rudder I mean, you live off that rudder. And did you feel? I know you came in with the air wing. That's one of the wings that we suggest that you started off with. And you also went out and bought yourself a what is it? It's not a Bixler, but the Ranger, 1600.
Yeah, that came a little later. That was when you guys told me that I really needed to fly line of sight, which is absolutely true, by the way. You do if you fly a wing.
Yeah.
You can fly a wing from the get-go in the goggles, but if anything goes wrong, then you're in the shit.
So would you still say that the AR wing is the best wing to start off with, or best plane, or would you say something like a Bixler or a Ranger or whatever plane like that has a rudder for a quad guy?
Well, to be honest, Steve, it doesn't really matter what I say, because people are just going to go out there that fly quads, put a pair of goggles on and do what I did and fly a wing, okay? So that's what most people will probably do, but having gone through the process now, I think it would have been beneficial for me to get a Ranger or a Bixler and learn to fly line of sight, and also to have a rudder to help you to be able to fly. Now,
Perfect.
When I flew the AR wing and it got up in the air, the first time I actually flew it after the first maiden disaster, the first thing I said to myself is, shit, this thing won't turn.
Because you're pulling the rudder.
And that's when I realized that, you know, what bank and yank actually meant. I never really knew what that term actually meant. But then, of course, when you're playing on the sticks after a while, you can turn these things around pretty much on a sixpence. So,
hey Glenn, we just got a couple new guests in here. We now actually have Jesse Dixon, who's showing up with his Red Bull.
Hi, Jesse.
Is he on the screen right now?
Yeah, not a Red Bull, it's actually beer.
Yeah,
Had a rough night last night.
Yes, finally video. One question to you, quad to plane movers, also Glenn and the other guys. Sun and Dad wrote in the YouTube chat, a lot of quad pilots who try fixed wings complain about the shaky FPV image. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I kind of just got used to it right off the bat. One thing I noticed is it depends really when you fly. If you're flying, like if it's slightly windy, like as a lot of times we're down near the beach, you'll get a little bit more of that. And the other thing is, it seems like at a certain speed, depending on what your speed envelope is, you can get that to smooth out. Because I noticed that mine will get real bouncy if I'm trying to go slow, like all my race wings. But once I hit that like optimum speed, it seems to just smooth right out.
Yeah, awesome. I just recently looked a video from Glenn together with Steve, and Glenn, it was your low altitude cruising with the AR ring, and it was really amazing, even in the FPV feed, how smooth it was flying at this point. So I think if you have a calm day and your plane is still shaking around and wobbling, then you just have a bad tune. So you really need to work on the tune. You're too slow, or the eye gain is too high, and that causes often these shaky FPV feed. The plane may fly, may fly well and stable overall, so it's not drifting or not getting out of control, but you have always this jittering in the video feed.
It could also be a imbalanced prop causing vibrations.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and these vibrations overwhelm the accelerometer and the gyroscope, and then INAV will freak out anyway.
Is he mentioning this in the respect that, like, maybe it's when you fly a quad that's properly tuned, it's like it looks like when it's sitting still, it looks like it's on a tripod. It's the image is so clear, and you don't really get that with a wing. Is that what he's talking about? You think?
Yeah, I think
probably.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So
well,
if you have a GoPro footage, then just use how's this software called? Not Hypersmooth.
The software Glenn uses.
The stabilization, yeah, the software Glenn uses.
Real steady.
Real
steady.
Perfect. So, hey, I'm trying to figure out what Jesse has over his head in his background right now.
I've got everything that's down here in my supposed hangar. So that one up there is a twin 64mm EDF wing with a 9-foot wingspan.
Oh God!
It carries two 4S 2200 battery, and that's gonna be my next INAV project.
Oh God, that's
I had that one for
insane.
almost a year now. The red one behind me, I affectionately call it the Trash Eagle. That was my first airplane I've ever built. It inadvertently looked like a seagull, and at the time that I maidened it, it was near the dump. So here in Utah, our state bird is the California gull. So I figured it was appropriate to name it the Trash Eagle. So that's my first one there, and then I've got my other 64 millimeter EDF wing that's running on the 4S as well. That's the tube plane next to it, and yeah, there's just a mismatch crap here.
Oh, the tube plane. How's that going along?
Well, if the weather wasn't crap, then I'd be flying it right now. But over here we got like the Skyhawk and the Aero whatever, like that 1991 plane, and another Cub, and my AR wings on the table right there as well. So it's a
you got
non-stop show here.
You crashed the plane, and you took the wings off the plane. It was a regular traditional plane. You took the wings off and made it looks like a Delta wing out of it.
Yeah, it was a 600 millimeter Mustang that I'd gotten off the internet somewhere. It was like $100, and on the maiden I forgot to secure the battery, so as it went up, the battery shifted aft and it hammer-headed right into the ground. Of course, my 6-year-old son was watching that at that time, and he commented, "That was a quick $100." So I rebuilt it that time, and then I mained it again, and I was getting like insane top speeds, like 70 miles an hour out of it. But it would get a lot of prop roll or just torque roll on it, and so I was able to get it down, not too hard. Then I put the 411 in it, and then I did it again, and it got out of control. So I just decided, you know what, if I'm going to bail, it's going to be in the dirt. So it effectively origamied itself into multiple pieces, and at that point I was like, well, what else can I do with it? So I just modeled it off the AR wing that I had, and it flew fairly well the first couple of times, and after that I didn't want to fly anymore, so I was like, okay, at least I got the flight controller. And that's what's currently in my mini AR wing, and that's the one that Mark helped me set up with the tunes and everything. Then when it flies, it was just shuddering really, really bad, which it did take care of it for the most part. But I mean, I'm pretty much happy with what it is. I understand that it's not going to be perfect, but I mean, I could go for perfection, but you look at the shit that I'm dealing with here. I don't. I'm not I mean, if I'm happy with it and it flies and it does everything I want it to do, then great, and I'm happy with it at that point. But I'm not like, so far I'm just not into the whole fine tuning thing. I'm pretty green at it, so I've only been flying the INAV for about a year now, but I haven't gone into the CLI or anything like that. I'm kind of a novice as far as the CLI. I can remember all my MS-DOS years from Windows 3.1 and up, but the INAV CLI is just throwing me for a loop. And no, I haven't read the manual before everybody gets on my ass about
it. So Jesse, as you were complaining about all this stuff and you don't know what to do with it, I will send you my shipping address after the call, right?
Well, that'd be very fair, but would I get it back?
Awesome. Hey, Jason,
if you want me to build you one, Mark, I will.
Jason, I have a question for you. You're doing race wings, like the spec wings.
Yes. Yep.
And so you're now cutting. Your big thing is cutting foam.
Yes. Yeah. So I can honestly say I've not flown a single plane or wing that I haven't built from scratch. Wow. So I don't know what a good plane flies like. People say the ones I build are pretty good, but I can't compare it to anything because I haven't flown anything else. But I'm in the process of building a CNC. Actually, I was at the factory working on it yesterday, so I can just more automate the hot wire cutting. But yeah, I cut all my wings by hand. So and I basically, all the spec wings in Australia are ones, mostly, not all of them, but most of them are ones that I've cut. because we're selling them down here as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, cool. Was kind of like a flight test model. The way I got started out was I was doing tedious tasks at work, and I had access to YouTube while I did them. So I just started looking into RC plane crashes, and I was like, man, that's brutal. And I stumbled upon flight tests, and you know, this was back in the early days when the channel was still decent, and it wasn't so commercialized. And they were talking about flight. I did like, shit, I should try looking into RC plane crashes. And I was like, man, that's brutal. Off the internet, and I stumbled upon, you know, just the basic. It looks like the screen disappeared there, but just the basic, you know, receivers, got the Fly Sky, and built the Trash Eagle, and from there I just kept using foam. Then I just started gradually buying airplanes because it was less work, but then I kept modding them, and that was even more work.
That's awesome. So, question for Glenn before you. I know you have to go sometime soon here. What are you working on next? As other than the Drac, what's the next wing after that?
Well, actually, I've just impulse purchased a Sonic Model CF wing. And the reason why I've done that is because it's got this carbon fiber fuselage body, which is very similar to a quad. And I've just invested in the DJI system, so I wanted a wing that I could mount the air unit into and it would stay cool. So I figured that model, because it's open to the air, that the air unit can sit nicely into the carbon frame. So this is going to be what I'm going to try and build to fly proximity with HD. So that's what I'm going to be doing in addition to the mini Drac.
Yeah, that's the same wing as the Eachine Fury. So
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is. I heard so many kind of different views on it. Some people say it's terrible. Some people say it's fantastic. So I guess that with these kind of things, you just have to try for yourself, because people base their opinions on their own experiences. So someone has a terrible experience, then something is bad. Someone has a great experience, it's good. So you can never really tell. So I'm going to give it a try and see what happens.
It's like
is that the one you can pop the wings off?
Yeah.
I believe that they're held on magnetically. I think Steve knows.
Yeah, what happens is they are held on magnetically, and you'll give it about 3 flights, and you'll launch it. I do a side launch, and when you toss that thing, you're still holding on to the wing, and the rest of the plane takes off.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I guess I'll try and modify that in some way to make it better, because I'll probably run it on 5S. So I don't want it to be falling apart in the air for sure.
Yeah,
and magnet connections are not always a plane saver. A friend of mine just built the CF wing from Sonic Model, and he was running it with high power setup, flying low, little wind gust. He hit a little bush, and he was so fast. Yeah, the ring popped off, but the ring left as just a few confetti pieces. So it doesn't always help to save your plane.
No, yeah, and the idea is like, I think everyone's tried all these different things, like they use hook and loop to hold it together underneath. That doesn't work. You just basically end up having to glue it. And so it's, it's a 1 meter wing. It's it does fly really nice. I will give it that much. But if you don't secure it, what will happen is it will fall apart in midair. So
if I could magically let the glue on my first AR ring disappear, I think it would fall apart in 20 or 30 pieces.
Well, I always glue the wings onto my AR wing now. I mean, you were talking a little bit earlier about shaking on wings. Okay, so the first time I flew the AI wing and got the goggles on, I thought, my God, this is horrible. This thing is all over the place. This thing is just not like a quad at all. And I've seen all these great videos on YouTube of people flying wings really smooth, and I thought, this is how did they do that? And I kind of took all the principles that I've learned from flying quads. So this quad, the carbon on this quad is 6 millimeters thick, and it's super rigid. Okay, and I built this quad particularly for low-level cinematic footage, and it is super smooth. It's like silk, and the reason why it's like silk is because it's so rigid. So I figured that a wing maybe has the same kind of principle. So after I'd put 3 extra carbon spars into the AR wing, glued it to glued the wings to the fuselage, bonded the the fins on the end of the wing on tight so they don't wobble. That's when I started to get the wing to go smoother, because it's rigidity, I think, makes a big difference to how smooth you can get a plane to fly. This is just in my opinion. I'm a complete novice at this, but it certainly worked for me in terms of, as the plane tracks through the air, if there's anything that's wobbling around, then surely that's going to cause vibration, and that's going to start to make this thing to resonate. An arm on a quad, if it's too thin and you use two bigger props, and I've built so many quads where the arms are too thin, you get this resonation kind of effect going, and that causes destabilization, and then you end up with shaky footage. So
yeah, that's absolutely true. What a lot of people do not see is if they build a wing and they are just flying, and they're wondering why they have all these sudden twitches inside. Not only the wobbling because the wings are flexing, but like slight short twitches, and then they think, okay, I need to lower my P value, my I value, I have to change the tuning and all that stuff. But what the people are not seeing is that also a wing needs filtering. So on quads with Betaflight, it's the most important thing is to get your filters right, to get a clean gyro and accelerometer signal, and the same accounts for the ring. The only difference is that the frequencies are totally different, of course. You have slower turning props, okay, beside a 10-inch or so, and you only have one prop, so the filtering is easier, but it needs to be done. It really needs to be done. So a black box here is also very helpful. It made so big difference when I used my long-range AR ring with an F405 and SD card. I analyzed the black box and I saw, okay, I have a lot of noise in the 40 to 50 hertz area. That was not filtered out because I was flying slow. Then Oris had these like servo twitches inside, and then I changed the filters down to, I think, 30 hertz for the gyro and 15 hertz for the accelerometer, and it was gone. It flies like on rails now.
Let's slow you down a little bit. So the black box that you're talking about is where the SD card is. It goes on the bottom of your flight controller. Yeah. And exactly. The filtering is your filtering inside of the INAV configurator?
Yeah, exactly. Below the PID tuning values, you have the filtering settings. So it's much more easy to set up the filters for a fixed wing, because you have way lower rates you need to accomplish. You have the physical stabilization of the airframe itself, so you can make the cutoff frequency very low on a fixed wing compared to a copter. If you set it too low on a copter, then you will get delay, and then you will get these mid-throttle oscillations and all that stuff. So it's way easier. But if you look at the black box, you see the vibrations of the raw data of the gyro. Then you can see, okay, I have to set my filters in this area, and then it's absolutely fine. And this also will help for the horizon drift stuff we already talked about. So if the accelerometer gets cleaner signals, you have less horizon drift, and the last remaining bits you can remove by these value IMU accelerometer ignore rate, or so is it it's called, and you have a completely stable horizon and a more stable angle mode, cruise mode, return to home, and loiter.
I'll tell you what, we can write something up about how to do this filtering, because it sounds like it's pretty important, especially if people want to fine-tune their planes. So we can work on this.
Yeah.
So a little document.
Yeah, I had Mark remote into my computer not too long ago to do my mini AR wing, and so he started doing his work, and I got about 2 or 3 lines into it. I think I did pretty good on my other FC, but the rest of it, he was just like, well, you got to do this, and this, and just at that point I was like. So,
yeah, well,
like, all right,
pretty
Mark,
much.
your thing.
One of the questions.
The thing is, like,
go ahead.
For newer guys that might not have the background from quads, or had
which I don't
understand what we're talking about. Your motors, your props, things like that. It will create a vibration. And what you're trying to do is the gyro is that's what's giving the data to the flight controller to go through and make your plane fly the way you want it to fly. But those little vibrations, you want to basically tell the flight controller, hey, we know about those. don't worry about them. Don't take them as data.
Yeah.
So the little bit of vibration from, say, the motor, things like that, you're just trying to tell the flight controller, no, don't use that information. We know that's there. Ignore that, and just take the fact that the wind's blowing or that, you know, there's a gust. Use that information, not what's already inherent on the plane itself.
Hey, we're gonna say goodbye now to Glenn. He has to take off for dinner, which is strange.
Oh no.
Thanks for joining us, Glenn. Really appreciate it.
Oh,
Bye.
pleasure. Enjoy. I'll catch up on the recording later. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.
So, as an addition to the filtering stuff and the stiffness of the plane, Porn just wrote in the Facebook chat, for smoothness you need a little bit of less rigidity, sort of speak, so the entire system acts like shock absorber for turbulence. Ring needs to flex a certain degree for smoothness. Yes, that's true. Especially if you have a plane with a very wide wingspan like a Ranger 2000. Then you, of course, need a little bit of flex, even to accomplish for some slight wind gusts, and this can counteract here. But you need to keep in mind that on smaller rings, the resonance frequency of the ring is way higher, so it can happen at certain speeds that the rings start to resonate and then shake very hard, and you lose a lot of stability in this case.
You were also mentioning last night when we were talking about someone wrote in with about a Ranger 2000 and said it was dolphining. I don't know if it's porpoising or dolphining when the plane flies up and down like this. It goes, you know, does a wave. It pitches up, pitches down, pitches up, pitches down. And you made an interesting point about planes that are over 1.2 meters in size for INAV need more pitted shooting adjustments.
Yes, in this case, the main problem is just that these big planes with a long fuselage, a wide wingspan, need the PI controller to act very slowly. So the INAV defaults are just not made for this. So I'm not sure what the biggest ring is or the biggest plane you can select in the presets, but I think none of them will work on a ring with 1.60 m or 2 meter wingspan, and you really need to lower them. And also the for altitude hold, the PID controller you have there, you need definitely to lower them, because if this big plane tries to correct its altitude just by about 5 meters, INAV by default will get in a very steep angle down, and then the plane is just too heavy and too slow to catch up, and then it will start to oscillate in this way. So there you need much more tuning on bigger rings than on a small one.
Huh, okay. So what we're talking about doing is we're talking about coming up with some values for these planes. So we're going to guesstimate what the proper values would be, and we'll put it out there. And what we'll ask people to do is take these values and put video, capture video from their headset, goggles, showing what the plane flies like with these new values. We want to see if they work or not, and if we get something that works for like because there's like a handful of these planes that are perfect for INAV. So one would be the Ranger 2000. The ones over what 22.4 meters are kind of huge, but I don't think that many people do that. But there are a lot of people who do the Bixlers. There are a lot of people who do the Ranger 1600s. So we need to get really good PID values for those.
Yeah, I think it's hard to give general PID values, because I don't know much of these big planes, but I know, as far as I know, the Ranger 2000 has pretty big control surfaces, bigger than on a Bixler 3. And so it needs less movement, of course, and it has a little bit more authority. I think the main problem here is if you read my tuning masterclass document, the first point, or one of the first points, really is get the rates of the plane, the physical turning rates for a loop, for a roll, and all that stuff. And most of the people flying these big planes are not willing to do a full roll with such a big plane in the air.
Right.
So of course you need you don't need to make a full roll to determine how fast the plane can roll or how fast it can pitch. It's fine to make a 45-degree angle to the left, then a full 45 to the right. Count the frames of your video recording, and then you get the physical rates, because these rates INAV will also use for its control movement and all that stuff. And if you have these right, then also autotune will work.
Huh, interesting. That's cool.
Well, it's kind of like a child at the wheel of a big rig.
Yeah.
On the normal rates.
Yeah.
It's way too fast. As I was helping one of the guys with the Ranger 2000. Sorry, people, I can't remember any names. It's general issue for me.
Yeah.
I was looking into his INAV settings, and the problem really was the default rates of INAV was 240 degrees per second on pitch and roll. You cannot do that on a Ranger. It's impossible, especially on the pitch. Maybe on roll, if you are fast enough, it could do it, but not on pitch. So this will completely mess with your tune.
Interesting. So as you put it down, I thought it was like 100 is for pitch, for larger planes.
I think.
So what you're basically saying is on a bigger wing like that, you can't have it roll at 200 degrees per second.
Yeah.
Like you were describing, like if you had it like on a 600 millimeter setting, and then you were flying an AR 900, it would, just the bigger wing wouldn't be able to roll that quickly, is what you're saying, and so that's therefore you have to reduce that setting.
Yeah, exactly. So if you just compare it, my Racer AR ring here, it is I have set it to 540 degrees per second on roll, and my Talon GT with, I think it has 1 meter wingspan, if I remember correctly. So just 10 centimeters more, but much heavier plane. I think my determined rates are 280 or 270 degrees per second on roll axis, because the control surfaces are much smaller.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm following you. Yeah, I learn stuff every day, but I always go with the mode, because I flew line of sight for a couple of years before I got into any sort of flight controllers, and then when I did, I got into these little 3-axis gyros that work fairly well. But
and then like $12.
Yeah, they're picky though. The only bad side to them is you have to put inputs in and then inputs out.
Oh,
so you have just a rat's nest of wires.
So you bring up a good segue point right here, which is somebody who's been writing in the last week. Actually, a couple of people have both brought up simultaneously in the group that they want INAV Lite. They want something that's just a real basic INAV where you can get it set up in an afternoon type of thing. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, you can set up normal INAV in an afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember that post, and my biggest issue with it is everything that they want doing, you really need to do for regular INAV anyway. So they want, from the INAV Lite, I believe they wanted just basic stabilization modes on the Switch, no return to home, any of that sort of stuff, which if you're setting up INAV at all, you can have that whether it's a light version or not. You still need to do all the basic steps for the configuration, so the accelerometer, for setting up, for soldering, all that kind of stuff you need to do regardless. So all it would really do is cut down on what modes you add on the modes page. That's all that the light version would effectively do. You'd still need to tune it, and you'd still need to trim. So none of that would disappear with an INAV Lite, because the only way that would work so that everything was packaged is if you built an identical plane to what's recommended. Say an AR wing with such and such motor, such and such servos, it weighs this much, it uses that battery. Otherwise, all the PIDs and everything will be out anyway. So yeah, my main point is, if you're for that INAV Lite, you may as well just use INAV anyway.
Right.
Because if you get that working, the return to home will work, which is advantageous anyway. So I personally don't see any advantage to it. I mean, maybe the issue isn't so much INAV itself, but getting people to understand it quicker.
Yes,
I think
that's like
I would think in that case you'd probably want to use some sort of receiver like this in this Optera back here that has safe and return to home, or just like a safe mode anyway. So if you get into trouble, you can flip the switch and it'll bring it back level into flight. I think I don't run Spectrum, so I'm never, I don't use them. So I just would figure if that's the way you want to go, then at least get the appropriate remote and receiver.
Yeah, or something like the co-pilot.
That brings up a good point, which is kind of back to what Glenn was talking about. How do we get people into INAV fixed wing who come out of quads and things like that? Or there are a lot of people who want to get started right away, and I think we did half the homework for them by giving the OpenTX build for them, so they don't have to worry about the radio side of things. All they have to worry about is getting the flight controller to play and getting the plane built. But the one thing I will say is that we're asking more for our planes than we used to. I mean, it's real simple to have a little kit you buy at your hobby store that has the radio and it has the plane. You're not going to fly it more than 300 meters because you're going to lose range and it'll crash. But anyway, you're not really asking that much of it. You don't need to know as much as if you're setting something out 5 kilometers away. You really need to know everything about that plane and how it works and how it functions and what all the switches do, because when you get panicked, Mark has the story about panicking when he was first flying, and even as an experienced pilot, he had a new radio set up and he panicked. He lost video signal, and you panicked and you were like,
yeah, it was. I just had the INAV control setting from Darren pretty new, so I was not very comfortable yet with it. At the moment, I use it for all my planes. So the problem was I have disabled the disarm kill switch in INAV for all my planes. So if I accidentally disarm in flight, it won't disarm until I lower the throttle to 0. So what happened is, I threw the plane. I accidentally disarmed via switch, didn't recognize that, but the plane was still flying. And I was just wondering why I was not able to change any modes, because with this Tyrannus setup, all the modes and the arming are on the same channel. So it was stuck in acro, and I thought, okay, I'm just in the air, let's say it, or let's call it a remaiden, after some changes. I quickly do some stuff and do an auto tune and fly around a little bit, and then all of a sudden I lost video, gray picture, just the OSD, and yeah, that was my panic moment at this point. I crazily switched around all the modes and nothing happened, so I decided, okay, let's turn off the transmitter and force the plane to come back. Unfortunately, at this point, I lowered the throttle, the plane disarmed and crashed into a field. So if I wouldn't have panicked, then I could completely fly this plane only with the OSD back to me and land line of sight. So that's really important, not to panic if something goes wrong. And the best example for this, was my ESC failure with my Talon GT 1 or 2 months ago. I was about 800 dipimeter above the ground, and suddenly I had no throttle anymore, and yeah, what do? It's not a glider. So keeping calm, control the plane, and land it.
Well, that's the point. Even with an experienced pilot, you really need to know everything that you're working with, and that's we're dealing with INAV. We need to know not only how the plane goes together, but you need to know all the features of INAV, especially if you're going to take it away from you. I'm talking more than probably 300, 400 meters away. Your intimate knowledge of INAV needs to go up with. You need to be really sure about everything you're doing with this plane, because some of these cases, when you're flying 2, 3, 4 kilometers away, you're not getting the plane back for 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you really have to trust your gear. Test it, trust it. That's yes, really important. So if you don't trust your gear and you don't have, can say, okay, if it's in return to home, I just know it will come back. nothing, no matter what happens. So that's the point where you need to be. So I often see a lot of newbies in the hobby. They build their first plane and then they go out, fly 5 kilometers away, hitting return to home, and then, oh shit, it's not good tuned, it loses altitude, it wobbles around, or it's too slow and can't fight the wind, or any of that stuff. And yeah, then the plane is gone.
I want to change
That's
gears
always
here.
been my biggest fear.
Oh, really?
Throwing $300 into the wind and being like, all right, good luck, buddy.
I want to change gears here and bring up something that came up this week. It's the second time here in Los Angeles that this has come up, and that was we had our news helicopters and one of our networks ran into a drone on the other night coming back from assignment. And so earlier in the month, we had a big
drone
fight.
or a plastic bag.
If I ran into it, I should have looked where they were going, to be fair.
Yeah. Earlier in the month, we had up in Central California, where a place that's not really well inhabited, they had a fire and huge fire. It was burning essentially nothing because no one really lives up there. But they're setting in their air equipment to put out the fire, and somebody had a drone up there as well. And so at all the news conferences, they start the news conference off complaining about the drone that was in the air. We had to, we're looking into this, and that was like the biggest story because there's nothing else to talk about. So in Southern California, we had 2 drone issues, I would say, in the last month that are big. And the reason I wanted to bring this up was I had a point of view, which was years ago when the motion picture industry started in Southern California, or it started in the United States. They went to Southern California because back then they didn't really have good lighting. So what we did was they would put skylights in the roofs, and you would have more sunny days in Southern California, so you can film more out here. So if you wanted to make a movie anywhere in the United States, pretty much you had to come to Hollywood, come to Los Angeles to film it. Well, that's all changed. I mean, with the technology we have these days, we're filming Breaking Bad in New Mexico. We're filming, was it Grimm up in Portland? The Flash is filmed up in British Columbia. And of course, movies are getting filmed overseas all the time. What was it? That the Lord of the Rings is filmed. It was in New Zealand or someplace like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what happened? The reason I bring this up is in Los Angeles, you have no idea how much money each one of these projects brings in. I mean, it is when you have a major motion picture filmed out here, the amount of money that flows around that comes into the Los Angeles kitty is huge. So because of that, we are doing things that you would never do. I don't think in a lot of places where you'd live, like they will close down freeways just to film, in the middle of the night out here. And what Hollywood says and does, I mean, they have pretty much a lot of control of what goes on out here. And I bring that up because what you get also are people who come out here looking for work, and drone pilots are one of them. And when they go out, aspiring actresses, musicians, it's the best, pretty much best of the best in the United States end up coming out here for the various things that they're looking for. And we ended up with a situation here where what will happen is if you're making a television show, for example, and you're in between scenes, you want to do a cutaway shot, you want a nice video of downtown Los Angeles at night, you're not going to go hire a crew. You can go online, because you're done filming. You're like weeks away from releasing this to the general public. You go online and you'll find one of 500 guys trying to sell their video from their quadcopter downtown Los Angeles at nighttime. And it's really beautiful right after it rains. So the problem I had with both these stories, the one up in Northern California, Central California, was a guy, I believe, who was a stringer who they're not going to send their news helicopters up there to cover a lackluster fire, but they'll send a guy out there who's a stringer, who's a photographer for the media, who'll go up there and they'll film, take their quad up and get those quad shots. And, what we're looking at here, the basic issue I run into is that we are demanding more drone footage And that's just part of what we do. Every single TV show look at, even like the little news shows they have, they all are using drone footage. So we have so much commercial application out here, and the problem we're running into is that because we cannot have these, we cannot go over the 400-foot limit, which everyone does anyways. We are running into real problems with commercial photographers who are sending their work, their drones up, or maybe even planes, but sending them up to get footage. And the reality is that they're getting paid to do this, and they cannot legally do this, and they cannot legally put out a beacon saying I'm up here. So what you're seeing is now it's just the start of war to come until we can actually change the rules here in the United States.
So I think.
Well, I mean, to that argument as well, we get massive forest fires here in Utah as well, and they'll shut them down for, because there's a drone sighting and so forth. But I think a lot of it comes down to is how do we know it was a drone, and this is where I get kind of skeptical as to how do we know that was a drone and not a Raven, because a Raven can be pretty damn big and can look like a drone,
right?
Especially if you're far enough away from it. I mean, if it's a little black dot in the air, you can say, okay, well, that's a drone, let's shut it down. So the question I have is, how do we know this is happening, and if there's nobody being arrested or charged with it or publicly, being held accountable for it? I mean, it's one of those things where isn't a video signal easily intercepted? I mean, if you're using like a 5.8 gigahertz signal, couldn't, say, the Forest Service or something like that strap on an antenna with a receiver and scan the skies just to make sure that there's no video feeds coming from these things? Or this is where I get confused with DJI, if it's like a protocol or an encrypted signal, or if it's just something that's sent out into the wild that can be intercepted by anybody with a pair of goggles. This is where I kind of have my skepticism, especially here in my state, where they say we shut it down because there was a drone in the air. Well, how do we know? Because in theory, you could figure out, if you had a way to intercept the video signal, you could find where the people are at, where they arm, where they disarm, where they set up, and then you could go out there and send a crew to either cite them, or, arrest them, or so forth. So this is where I get kind of into the weeds on things as far as drone sightings during fires and things like that.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point. As you said, you can easily catch any FPV video feed signal. I think we have about 40 or 50 channels to cover, and if I see in Germany here, the state will now invest between 25 and 50 million euros per airport just to set up a drone encounter system where they can detect them and get them out of the sky with jammers or whatever. And I think if they would just make some kind of antenna on the tower that is looking for FPV video signals in the area, and then you can easily see if you catch up something, and if you with correct antennas. Of course, if you fly with 25 milliwatts, you can maybe go to a distance of 5-6 kilometers to the airport, and you will still catch the signal before they can catch the signal with a directional antenna. And if you send on 1000 milliwatt, what's illegal in Germany anyway, it could happen that they catch you at 20 or 25 or 30 kilometers distance already. But at least they can see what are the people doing, and maybe they have GPS coordinates, or they see where they will land or where they start and where they're flying. And it would make it very easy to get people doing bad stuff.
It's just the issue that I have is like they flippantly say, oh, we have a drone in the area, but it's easily confirmable. If you get an array of directional antennas, just big ass 5.8, or I don't know what DJI runs on.
It's also 5.8.
So if you can get an array of those and intercept those video signals, and you have a confirmation rather than just speculation, and that's kind of where it boils down in my mind. Is like, how do we know that this is actually out there?
But the funny thing is too. Sorry. The funny thing is too is like with you. I mean, a lot of the times you're looking. I mean, we're everybody's. We all were pointing fingers at DJI because That's where a lot of this is coming from. But
I just use DJI as kind of the scapegoat.
Yeah, but the thing is, but in the grand scheme of things, if you wait 20 minutes, or if it's a race drone, if you wait 2 minutes, the guy's landing.
Yeah.
They're landing.
Yeah, they're not going to be up in the air for too long.
That's true.
No, I mean,
you know, the grand scheme of things, you're not staying up for more than 20 minutes.
Darren's been really outspoken about this.
No, I was just going to say the problem we have right now is there's no burden of proof.
Right.
I mean, in England we had Gatwick Airport about 2 Decembers ago. They shut the airport down for 3 or 4 days because of a drone sighting.
Right.
And the number of thousands of people at that airport, and not one single image of a drone was ever released. And the only drone they found at the site was a police drone that was there searching that they had crashed. So, yeah, I think there's too much. Basically, the media gets hold of a story and blows it out, but there needs to be a burden of proof to say, well, actually, there was a drone here or there wasn't. So yeah, I mean, Jesse's idea about a simple array that just scans the 5.8 gigahertz bands, it will soon pick something up. Or, you know, DJI could release a commercial module that will scan their because they do have a different system, Lightbridge or something. Yeah, Frank's just put it up. But yeah, there's easy ways to find video signals, but they never seem to bother with that. It's all basically hearsay.
And at that point too, there's you know, if there's drone sightings, I've never heard any reports of anybody being arrested, detained, charged, or any of that matter with you know, either impeding firefighters or emergency vehicles or any of that kind of thing with, you know, their drones, which is just kind of like, it brings it back to hearsay. And so therefore it really raises some skepticism in my mind. But then again, I don't want to be that first guy.
Yeah, in the UK, where they had these airport shutdown, I think it was last year, because of drone sightings, there they have arrested some people.
Actually, they didn't. Well, they did, but basically they were looking around. They found, someone saw on a Facebook profile, there's a guy who flew RC helicopters, and the police arrested him.
Oh.
So that they had
was
no
at work,
proof.
wasn't he?
I can't remember.
Wasn't he at work, and his workplace actually called the cops and said, no, he was actually with me all day.
Yes, that's correct.
He couldn't have been here.
He was at work, so he had an alibi. They had no evidence. It's just purely because on his Facebook he flew RC helicopters, which, you know, adds another question about this whole registration. They've all of a sudden got a huge list of people who fly RC planes, and if they get any incident, regardless of proof, they're going to say, well, they live close, they fly RC planes, let's go talk to them.
So then we can get back to the clickbait media. They said, hey, they arrested some people, and then, as you said, it was a false alert, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Nothing about it. Nothing.
Yeah. They kept the, well, actually, in this country, they did publish that they had been freed without charge. But I guess everywhere else.
But for German media, it's not interesting anymore.
No. But yeah, I mean, that whole situation just stank, to be honest. They had police helicopters with thermal imaging cameras. They couldn't see anything. And apparently this drone kept on appearing. And it was a big industrial drone. Apparently, it's bullshit. There's nothing there.
A few weeks ago, I found a video of a guy, one of the bigger RC hobby YouTuber. He made a video about all these media hype about drone sightings and all that stuff, and he brought a pretty nice example. Last year there was a situation where a flight attendant said, and also the pilots afterwards said, they have seen a drone a short time after takeoff. The altitude of the plane was about 2,000 or 3,000 feet at this point.
Right.
So it's 1 kilometer altitude. Usually most of the passenger airplanes have a speed of about 300 400 kilometers per hour at this altitude. And they said they saw a drone, 1 or 2 drones, they were not sure, about 2 or 3 ring spans away from the plane. So they want to tell me that they saw a drone of the size, let's say it's a DJI Phantom with 50 centimeters diameter at 150 meter distance with a speed at 400 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, with a top speed of 40.
Yeah.
If you brings up another interesting question back to Steve's subject of the drone strike on the helicopter. So if you figure mass times acceleration, how fast did that drone have to be traveling, or the airplane in conjunction, to hit hard enough to put a hole in the tail section of that aircraft?
That was a helicopter, yeah.
Yeah, the helicopter.
It was up about 1,500 feet, and that was a question I have. I don't know. Can a DJI quad get up to 1,500 feet easy enough?
Yeah.
There's that. Well, it depends. And there's also the downward prop wash of the helicopter as well. You'd think it would make that thing turtle in the air.
Nah, not that fast. If the helicopter is moving forward with 50 or 100 kilometers per hour, it will hit the drone before the drone gets influenced by the prop wash. I think with helicopter, the most dangerous thing is that the drone hits the blades, especially at the wing tips. The wing tips are moving with about 300 to 600 kilometers per hour through the air, and it just can rip off the whole ring tip of the blade if it hits the drone. And if you see the planes, it doesn't matter how fast the drone is, because the plane is the vehicle that is moving with 200, 300, 400 kilometers per hour. And I think that impact can cause a lot of damage, especially with the big.
I wish they would bring Mythbusters back.
So what I'm thinking is that if you have a commercial photographer doing work out here in Los Angeles, they're probably not using the little DJI drones. They're probably using something that's be more along the lines of what Glenn showed us earlier, with 10-inch props on it.
Octocopter with a Canon,
big octocopters,
camera.
Right, in order to get up to that distance, because they have to carry some pretty heavy camera gear as well, something at a higher resolution.
The other thing to this too is you would think that the person that crashed that drone would try to go and retrieve any sort of bits and pieces from it.
Right.
And then somebody would have seen something, you would imagine, in a city that big.
Right, that's what I'm thinking too, and it would show up somewhere, and it hasn't.
But that falls under a Part 107. All of this stuff we're discussing with that, if it's being used commercially, that all falls under a Part 107. So it's not it's not like a hobbyist like what we're doing. It's right. That's commercial.
I just say, like, when it comes to fires, it should be a $25,000 fine in the United States if you fly a drone around a fire. And if we catch you, that's, minimum fine's going to be $25,000. It will keep everyone away from the fires. And so we won't have a problem with that. But for the commercial stuff, that was part of what they were trying to work up to, was to have some way that our aircrafts have a radio beacon on it so that the aircrafts can see it when, we get up to,
Isn't TBS working on that? TBS, I believe, is working on that.
They are. Yeah,
I thought so. Or was that only so you could see, like, each other's plane? I think they have a system like that, or they're on the works of one.
What it's like, if you're a commercial if you fly general aviation aircraft, you have a beacon on your plane that broadcasts your signal. It's a radio beacon that says, "This is my call sign." So they want the same thing for our RC planes as well.
Yeah, DJI has not DJI. TBS has the system. Not sure about the name right now. Maybe the chat knows. They have 2 license types. There's a free license where you can only see the location of other RC aircrafts with the same system, and they have a paid license that's not very cheap. I think it was about $120, $150 per year. And with this, you can also communicate with aviation aircrafts, but only small aircrafts like a Cessna or some hobby aircraft stuff, not with main passenger airplanes.
What it's like your commercial
I have a quick video. I think that's one of the biggest dangers drone pilots can cross. So I will quickly share it with you. Wait a second.
Sure.
So you can see in. Wait, I have to. No, I have to move to the other screen.
This is exciting. We have a movie.
Yep. So if some people are doing this, I think this is the biggest danger in the hobby and with aircrafts. So it's really a DJI drone filming planes launching and landing directly on the aircraft. It's just a snippet of the video because some other guy on a YouTube channel, I will post a link, is commenting about this, but you see, this is something no one should do.
Yeah.
Do we know
if
the
you're doing
country
that,
of
you're a
origin?
dick, basically.
Do we know the country of origin in which this is occurring?
Look at this.
So he's really close.
Now imagine that plane needs to make a turnaround because someone is on the runway. It turns right and crashes right into the drone.
Right. So that's the whole idea that you're not supposed to fly around the Class D airspace, as we call it here in the United States, which is what, 3 to 5 miles from an airport.
Well, now
Yeah,
the
even
thing is
hospitals
now.
is another good note to just people like myself. Is even hospitals, there's a 5-mile radius around those as well, just because of the helipads. So there, you got to be aware of that.
But now, if that's like a DJI, that's supposed to, like here in Australia, that shouldn't take off more than 9 meters off the ground because of the geofencing. So unless the geofencing has been disabled, it shouldn't even be able to fly that close.
Right.
But is that even? I mean, I don't know really much about DJI, so I was just like, I kind of like to pick on them just because they just seem to be the most popular, or at least, you know, the most commercially available, just plug and play, here you go, throw it in the air type of thing, at least in my opinion, but I could be wrong.
Well, no, my mate, one of the guys I work with, he has a Mavic. He brought to work. We're within the radius, and he went to take off just to hover it. It wouldn't even go off the ground because we were within the radius. And then once you move out past that, it'll only go to 9 meters, and then once you go past that, then it'll actually fly because you get the blinky lights, and it basically says it won't fly. Now, I do think there's a way that you can, like, you have to, like, I don't know if you put in a code or whatever it is, but you can bypass that. But like that whole geofencing safety feature is there. But again, that's for a closed box system. That's like none of our stuff responds to that because we're not, you know, we're flying INAV or we're flying Betaflight.
Right. My point of view is if you really want to, if the FAA wants to come down on the hobby, I'd say let's start with the dead bodies first. And if you look at the dead bodies, you have far more dead bodies with general aviation aircraft than you do with our hobby. And we really, I mean, I don't quite understand why everyone gets upset if I fly my 1 kilogram plane over their house at 200, 300 meters up, but someone flying a plane that weighs, I don't know, 15,000 pounds, I weigh about 5,000 pounds for general aviation aircraft. You know, they fly up at about 2,500 feet over their house. They're perfectly fine with it. When my plane crashes, it might annoy you, but when that plane crashes, it takes out a house.
Yeah, I think it's also a statistical thing. I mean, how big is the chance that a general aviation aircraft crashes above your house, or a self-built, filled around, custom-built RC model airplane crashes? So, how likely is it to crash one of both? Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah. But then there is a lot of crashing in general aviation that just doesn't even get reported. There's quite a lot that goes on.
Oh,
I'm with Steve on this whole body count thing, where we you know, focus on the body count because, as you know, like I mentioned, it wouldn't be that hard or that expensive to make a scanning array for these drones or anything like that that are flying in prohibited airspace and actually, you know, getting the people that are violating these fucking rules. Pardon my French there, but you know, it's not that difficult. I wouldn't imagine it'd be that difficult, but then again, I fear that you know, just the crackdown on it would be severe to the point where it would just exclude everybody from even trying it.
All right, roundtable time. I want everyone to mention their favorite plane or their type of flying that they like to do the most. Yeah, I'm gonna start off with Darren first because I'm looking at you.
Okay. I don't know. At the moment, my favorite plane of what I've flown is probably my Nano Goblin, just because it can do pretty much anything. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying flying fast. That's what I'm hoping to get more into, and yeah.
Oh, the Strix Nano Goblin?
Yeah, Strix Nano Goblin.
Oh yeah, okay. So they're out of stock on that right now.
Yeah, I think I'm sure I heard that RMRC are getting them in within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So hopefully they'll be back in stock. But yeah, they're great little airplanes. So similar size to a mini AR wing, but as Jesse had problems with the oscillation, I had that as well, and they're a lot better airplanes than Nano Goblins. But yeah, no, I'm trying to go fast. Got my F1 wing, which I'm just trying to put bigger and bigger motors on and go faster and faster. So
what's your top speed of on the F1 wing for now?
With a motor that survived 139 miles an hour.
It was about 160, right? Where your motor burned or your motor ESC blew up?
That yeah, completely melted the motor at about 50 meters off the ground, and that was accelerating through 150 when that let go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a new motor on it. I'm just hopefully it should carry on and get to maybe 160, 170. But yeah, it'd be fun.
How about you, Mark?
Yeah, for me, as you know, not much selection to pick a favorite plane of the planes I have, but at the moment, as it's winter and I don't want to do long range in 5 degrees temperatures outside, this one. Okay, I have blurred out. It's my little Kelly with a beefy motor, 180 tops, no, 160, 170? 170 top speed. Kilometers per hour, not miles per hour.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just so much fun to rip around with it, and at least it had no crashes yet.
Perfect. Jesse, what about yourself?
Are you talking about home built or bought? Because I have a couple of them here. Let me go grab the one that I fly the most. It's just hanging up here.
Okay.
This is my Horizon Ascent SPX. This is the one that flew away from me. I've upgraded the motor on it and put FPV on it, and yeah, I know my control throws. I get a lot of shit for my control throws. Just how long my arms are on my airplane, and just how big my ailerons are. And I've just as I've been building, I just figure the more aileron, the more authority you have to turn or pitch something that can be unpredictable, the better, and then you can trim it back from there. So I get a lot of flack for that, but this is my little darling. This is the Park Flyer. This is usually about 25-30 miles an hour, and it goes for about 15-20 minutes.
Perfect.
On a 900 2C.
Just a quick question. I think the aileron design is pretty nice because you have a lot of control authority on the inside of the rings, so it should have a very nice store characteristic.
It does. It does very well at low level. It does. I'll fly this one in the park, just down the street from my house. It's probably a 100 by 100 meter box that I can fly in just in that area. It's nice to get really low to the ground. I do it for a lot of. There's a lot of construction happening away from my house where they're building new subdivisions, and I like to just kind of push it over top of the rolled up dirt and in between the tractors, the tractor arms that are stationary, and just kind of do what Mark does with the gates on with his mini AR wing. And so that's my favorite one that I fly the most. My second's going to be my mini AR wing that Mark helped me with too. It's kind of reminiscent of the SPX. Unfortunately, they discontinued the SPX, so I kind of got one of the last ones in existence. And got to tell you, I was pretty sad when that one flew away, but I got it back a week later, which is a good thing. So, but yeah, other than that, just the mini AR wing, and then my third favorite is probably the single EDF that's hanging up behind me. That's just foam board, 64 millimeter EDF. It's got steerable nose gear, and we run it on 4S, and it's probably a good 25, 30 mile an hour flyer. But then I've flown this one a couple of times up here. That's the twin one. That's gonna be my third, I would say. 3 out of 3.
How about you, Jason?
Spec wing and spec wing and another spec wing.
What are they like?
Oh, it's just fun. They're fast. That's a 914. So that's 914 millimeter. It's FPV WRA spec. They do about 110, 120 kilometers an hour on 3S. And yeah, you just flying fast and race gates and glue and tape. It's a blast. It's an absolute blast. I mean, I'm surprised. You haven't grabbed a bunch of wings from Arthur. Because now he's making as well.
I will soon, definitely next year. I will buy some of his rings. The Ornith is a really, really nice plane, and also one of his spec rings. But talking about spec rings and fast, in my opinion, they aren't fast. They are agile, yes, but not fast.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's spec. I mean, you can make them go faster. Just drop them to 4S and put a different motor on them.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is, everyone is on a level playing field, so it makes it like NASCAR. It's all about pilot skill, not who's got the deepest pockets.
Yeah.
So if you take, for instance, our first spec wing race that happened here in Sydney a couple months back, one of the guys that came down from Brisbane, he had a right wing spec. He had 2 right wing specs with him that he bought from the States. He had the fastest individual lap on the track. I had the most laps within 4 minutes. Yet my mate Maddie actually won the entire event. So that's how close the racing was.
Yeah.
Everything was so close because everyone was evenly matched.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting when I participated at that ring race a few weeks ago. We had also an open round where everyone could fly, no matter if sub or spec or open. And I think we had 2 or 3 guys flying spec rings, throttle, full throttle, just leave it there and then fly around the track. And I, with my AR ring and the big T motor on 4S, and I was trying to keep it slow somehow to get the corners, because if I go full throttle, I would have overshot the whole track in 2 or 3 seconds. So.
That's it. So yeah, what you're talking about, the spec wing, it was a design that came up with probably a few years back.
Yeah, that was Alex. Alex Greaves came up with that. I'd be crazy.
I'd be crazy. Yes.
Yep.
He has a little YouTube video that shows the spec wing, the whole concept behind it, and how you build it, and how you're supposed, what you're supposed to use in it, and so it's interesting. I saw him come up with the video. I didn't know a lot of people were actually going out and racing these things. So
it's surprising. I think it was back in August. They had a big money race in Atlantic City. There was $16,000 on the line, and it was a spec wing race.
Wow. Huh, cool. So but you made one with INAV on it, FPV, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because the thing is, I can't fly line of sight. I started with quads, because when I was a kid, all the planes were balsa, and so I'm showing my age. So my parents, they wouldn't let me get into that. So when I started flying, it was all quads. And then, so I never learned line of sight. And then I just started building my own wings, and I couldn't fly line of sight. So I put INAV in them. And so I do that infamous, maiden, nav launch, return to home, all on the same switch, and that's my maiden. And if it goes, it goes. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I've only had, I think, 2 out of 11 that hasn't worked. So
it's awesome. Yeah. So you're actually kind of the go-to guy when it comes to things such as guys like myself who switched over from, regular fixed wing line of sight with those standard speed controllers, the ones that have the specs built into them. And then we go over to Opto, and then all of a sudden it's a whole new world where everyone's like BL Heli 32, what's going on? So every time I get lost, first person I talk to is Jason. He's the go-to guy. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Yeah, my kind of flying is, I started off with the line of sight planes, and so I had so many of these planes that what I'm doing now, there's like a lot of them that I had that never really get flown. So I went back through and I started putting flight controllers in them, and I'm having a great time just bringing back these planes that were not really flown that much. But with that being said, my favorite plane, the one I fly out the most, is the AR wing. That thing is rock solid. It is just a lot of fun to fly that plane. It's very dependable. You can always know, like, when the thing takes off, you can always get it back. But there's a lot of what I'm working on now is things like the Bixler 2. I have a Bixler 2 that I've been working as a flight controller in it, getting that worked out so that it could be a good mid-range FPV platform is good. I do have 1 or 2 planes that would make a good, somewhat long-range platform, but where I live in Southern California, if you want to get out and fly this, I mean, I will sit there and look at everyone who joins the group, and I see a lot of people who are surrounded by farmland, and so I no wonder why they wanted to get into long-range FPV. They've got nothing but open, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of open space, but we don't have that in Southern California. You have to drive an hour away to get to something like that. And even then, it's, you only can probably have open space for 10, 15 miles before you really start to run into problems. You get airport spaces in the area and stuff like that. So, yeah, but the thing that I always want to get back to is that INAV works on a variety of things, not just the AR wing. It will work on, we have so many people who join the group who, first thing they do is like, I want to here's my dream plane. It's going to be gorgeous, and I'm going to put a flight controller in it, and my first experience with INAV is going to be on this dream plane that I'm going to put $300 into. And my point of view is, why don't you find something that you don't mind destroying? And
to your point, Steve, as far as something you're willing to destroy, failure is always an option when you're building planes out of foam. So that's where I kind of come down to it, is like, if you want to start with something, even when I was a kid, the only reason I couldn't fly airplanes is because just for the controller was about $400 or $500, and then you're into the nitro plane X amount more dollars. So you're talking like $1,000 just to get out off the ground and end it spectacularly. Yeah. And
but if you think about it, it's not much different today. I mean, my AR ring here, my race ring, it's about $300 of value worth roundabout, including a battery and the camera. It's even more. It's about 300 in total. And then you have your goggles. You are another $300 to $600, depending what you want to buy. You have your transmitter. You are another $200 or $300, depends what you buy. So you are already about $1,200 just to get one plane in the air at the beginning.
Well, that's true. That's true. But I didn't begin just FPV right off the bat. I started with just building a rudimentary airplane, which was the Trash Eagle over there.
Oh, okay.
And I built a big wingspan on it, so it was very slow, it was very controllable, and it was just easy to fly. And so I started with that, and then I just started building more and more of them out of the foam board and just buying more and more components. And I didn't really get into FPV flying until about 2 or 3 years into the hobby. And that's when my buddy Timon turned me on to, big shout out to Timon, turned me on to the FPV kind of thing. And so I started out with, these basic, E-Sheen goggles that I was gifted.
My EV800 is laying over there.
Yeah. And then I was gifted another pair of these box goggles that I had put these antennas on. I don't know if they work for shit or not.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. This is my long range monitor right now, the EV800.
And then I also got like the little. Let's see if I can find it here. Just the cheap ones from eBay, just like that you can hook into. This is just a monitor I found at a thrift store.
Wow.
And so I've put into this, and I use this for bench testing too. By the way, this is another thing I wanted to mention. If you don't want to run your goggles, just find one of these backseat car monitors, has a video input, just plug it into your VTX out, and then you can use this as a bench testing without having to fire up your goggles. But I use this to let my kid kind of see what's going on with it and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where you can get into it for fairly cheap. It just depends on how deep you want to get into it. And the further you get, into the immersion part of it with the FPV, you're going to spend more money, but you can really get into the hobby for pretty cheap if you just want to, send a piece of foam into the air that you don't care about, or at least, you've at least tried. So that's where I've always come back to where failure is always an option. I mean, if you're willing to put the work in, you're willing to, just experiment, and you're willing to fail, you're going to learn a whole lot.
You bring up a good point, which is bringing people into the hobby. And so that was one of the things I mentioned in one of my posts recently, which is let's start working on putting goggles on new faces. And because this is really an experience. I don't know if you guys ever taken your goggles off and put them on someone else who's never seen the floater radio control plane?
We do it all the time. We do it all the time.
Yeah. So these are...
Just recently, a friend of me told me he has exactly done that. So someone was coming around and he gave him his goggles, and it took about 20 seconds and a power loop, and he just fell backwards.
I've taken my I call them the shitter goggles. I've taken those to the park along with the monitor too, and you'll get kids that are gathered around you and asking you questions and things like that, and then you just hand them the not so great pair of FPV goggles. They do go in and out as far as video is concerned, so that's why I've got quad diversity now. And so yeah, you get them into it. You just let them watch what you're doing, and you'll just hold the throttle, or they can take the sticks a little bit. And if they get out of hand, then you just hit RTH, and it'll be fine from there. That's usually what I do. Is I take my SPX, the little park flyer, and I take it to the park, and kids are interested in it, and I'll let them kind of look at it and kind of steer it around a bit. But just so you got to get them interested in something. And in the age of video games where my kid is at, and they don't want shit else to do with anything besides what's on the TV. So if you can get them out and get them building using razor blades and hot glue guns and soldering iron, that's kind of where I grew up, was just not having a whole lot of money as a kid, and just burning stuff and building it and burning it, and just until it finally erupts into flames, and you just watch it and go, okay, well, next one.
Yeah, what we're trying to do, I mean, if you think about how you can grow this hobby, because the way I look at it is just the general RC hobby of planes is starting to, if it's not peaked already, I think we're beyond that now. It's starting to decline a bit. But we have an actual really exciting part of this hobby. And if we just go after quad pilots, well, these are guys who are pretty much invested. I mean, they're kind of great guys to bring in because they know how to solder. They know about flight controllers. They know they have most of the gear. Give them a pair of servos and a body, some kind of fixed wing, and they're ready to go. But I think there's a whole new world also when it comes to people who like to game. We have adult gamers, people in their 20s and 30s who like to game a lot, and this isn't that far of a stretch from what they're doing. When you put the goggles on them, they can kind of like, I get this, I like this, this is something I really like. And I've taken these adult gamers out and show it to them. They're like, yeah, this is cool. So I just kind of think like what we need to do as a group is just kind of get out there and show it people and get them interested in it and get them hands-on, especially in your city. Like we had a problem with my city over the past year here where they decided that they were going to ban RC planes in parks. And I got to my city council and talked to them. And I think as you know, it's one of those things that, as what we do, a lot of people, especially people like to fly quads, you're only up for like 5 or 10 minutes. So you go to the park, you put 2 batteries in, you're done in half an hour. You're in your car, and you're pulling out of the park before, you know, just as you got there practically. So no one really cares too much. They don't really want to be seen in the community because they're kind of, you know, incognito, like in and out quickly. But I think, you know, if you get to be known in your community as the guy who flies RC planes, and, you know, I'm here to help out. If you have questions or anything else like that, approach your city council members if you can. If you live in a small enough city, you can't do that in Los Angeles. You can never get to your city council member, but just kind of get to be known as, you know, this is what I like to do. If you have questions, talk to me about it. And I'm the point person.
You put them under a set of goggles.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Do that. Yes.
We race car park every Wednesday night. There's like about 6 to 12 of us. We go to this office work car park that doesn't get closed up, and we fly from 9 until midnight. And so we just have drone races there. And we get undercover cops coming in all the time, regular police coming in all the time. They pull in, we put them under the goggles. They ask all the obligatory questions, you know, the how far, how much, how this, how that. They're like, that's cool, and they leave. And they don't kick us out, and they don't do anything. They know we're not there to cause trouble. You put them under the goggles, they're like, this is cool, and they go. And so you never have an issue.
They just kind of test you to figure out what you're doing there, and then they're like, okay, I got better stuff to do.
Well, the thing is, like, the first couple times, they were like, what the hell are we doing? And then they realized that, look, we're just a bunch of guys just looking for a place to fly, not causing any trouble, and
just playing with the toys.
And they ask all the questions and they leave, and then they come back with their mates. You know, here you go. Here we see the goggles.
Check
again.
this out.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Yep. But the thing is, it's you put them under the goggles, and if they don't get motion sickness, you won them over. You won them over. Because the thing is, it takes all of the things. It takes all of the, because so many people that don't understand the hobby have all these misconceptions that they see on TV. Oh, it can zoom. The camera can zoom in 10 miles away and peep in your windows and all that stuff.
You're spying on your neighbors, and you know, you got one hand on the controller and the other one doing this. You know?
And then, when you put them under the goggles, and then they realize what they're seeing, and then they realize what you're doing with it, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I can understand why the press is this way, but it's not really accurate. And then they go away with more information than they came with.
Yeah, so it's also very, very confusing that the press and also the politics always see a drone, but there are different classes of drones. You cannot use a little racer or a long-range copter to spy someone in his backyard, but you can do it with a DJI. Let's say a DJI Mavic Zoom. Yeah, there you can zoom. You can fly 300 meters high and do a 4K video and zoom into someone, to some girl laying in the backyard, sunbathing naked, and they don't even realize that you are there. But you cannot do that with the stuff we have.
Right. So exactly.
There should really be.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, they should really consider to make different classes, not only on the rate, but also on the equipment, on the possibilities of the drones. That's a big point. That's a really big point. Especially, let's say the routes with airports or helipads around you. There are many helipads here in the city, and there is a nice park. Maybe some of you have seen one of the videos where I found a nice spot with some trees standing around. It's a perfect freestyle training spot for me now. But there's a helicopter pad nearby, so it's about 1.5 kilometer distance. It is in the control zone. It is in the prohibited zone. But with my freestyle copter, I'm never much higher than the trees. I don't want to fly higher. Yep. I wouldn't get there and start a DJI and fly up and make cinematic shots of the city. I just want to fly through the trees. So why does it matter for the law? They say, okay, you are not allowed to fly here. So if someone comes around, I'm screwed. Yeah, that's true. But this spot is so nice. I still fly there, and I really want to have my little training spot. I don't fly high. I don't disturb anyone. I land if there are people passing by. So yeah, who cares?
I think the other important thing too is when you're flying fixed wing is you're always, I mean, at least in my experience, I've had multiple motor burnouts, especially on my big Trash Eagle where I was up, you know, a couple 100 feet. Motor burns out, can't find a good place to land, so you got to find a place to ditch. And so I think a lot of people, at least from my perspective, that at least in my experience, I should say, is that if I have to ditch, I'm going to put it somewhere where there's nobody, rather than, you know, having to, you know, worry about damage to persons or property, that kind of thing. So where if I still have control of the avionics on the airplane, I'm going to put it somewhere in the dirt that I know where it's going to go, and it's not going to hurt, you know, any of that stuff. I had a flyaway earlier this year where I had set a waypoint close to my house on INAV, and I didn't realize it, and so I went 5 miles away and went to go, you know, fly the airplane and accidentally hit waypoint, and waypoint went, this is like a F4 V3 flight controller, so it wanted to go to the first waypoint, which was pretty close to my house, but then I was 5 miles away and it didn't want to respond to anything, so it took off, and that's where I didn't find it for a week. Luckily some lady found it in her yard, but the only thing I could think of the entire time was, I really hope that doesn't go too high. I really hope that doesn't hit somebody's, you know, property, or some kid being pushed in a stroller in the neighborhood or something like that. Just all these things that you go through your head, it's like, oh shit, you know, it's, you know, I don't want to be that guy, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people want to be that guy.
I had exactly the same experience about 1 year back. I just built my first AR wing and finished everything, and I was flying at a little test spot, just a little field where just some roots around, and so I was flying and I tried to test mission flight without radio control. INAV didn't have this feature at this point, so I decided, just for testing purposes, to disable the failsafe completely, set it to ignore, and plan a little mission, fly around. Okay, it didn't work for some reason. It switched from mission mode into acro mode. Okay, turned the radio back on, flew a little bit around, and I said, okay, then let's do a battery runtime test. How long can this thing be in the air until the battery is depleted? Yeah, then for maybe 10 seconds I forgot that I disabled the failsafe, and I also had a Bluetooth module installed that dramatically reduces my FlySky radio range. So I was about 500-600 meters away. Suddenly my radio link dropped. And then also the FPV feed dropped, and the plane was in 3D cruise mode, and it ignored the failsafe, of course. So I had no chance to get video back. I was fiddling around. I totally panicked. I was.
That's always the best when you're doing this. You're like, come on, wait, where are you?
yeah, but the video was gone also, so I didn't know what the plane was doing at this point, and it was flying straight to the city. That was my biggest concern.
Oh.
So it was really direct into this direction. I thought I saw it turning a little bit, but I wasn't sure how much, because my video was totally lost. Yeah, I was searching it for 3 or 4 hours in this direction, because I was hoping that it went into acro again and crashed somewhere near, but can't find it. So after a few days I said, okay, screw it. I ordered all the new stuff, made a video of setting up the new F405 wing flight controller, and on 31st of December in the evening, New Year,
New Year's Eve.
yeah, New Year's Eve, some random guy wrote in the, under this video in the comment section, hey Mark, there's some guy in the Facebook group over there, he found an AR ring. It looks like your description. Maybe it's yours. And then he downloaded the pictures, because it was a closed group, put it on Imgur and sent it to me. And I thought, oh fuck, that's my AR ring. It was really found. So I joined the group, found the post of the guy, wrote him, and he at this point he was sick at home. And I think 2 weeks later or so, he put it all in a package and sent it back to me. So after about 3 months after I lost it, I get it back. I got it back. It's still the airframe laying over there. And yeah, and then I took out the SD card. I had my black box running. And with these multi-read tools, I was able to replay the black box. At this point, I lost the connection. I saw, okay, it's east-southeast direction, directly over the south of the city. It was flying at 60 meters altitude. I put this course, the GPS coordinates, into Google Earth. It was sometimes maybe 15 or 20 meters above the buildings. And the plane was traveling 14 kilometers until the battery died and it crashed.
Oh God!
I was
about as I watched
4 miles and I got it.
Yeah, as I watched the black box log, I was shaking the same way as I was when I lost the plane. So.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was my crazy story about flyaways.
One last topic, and then we should probably call it a day. Just wanted to say anything about the group, any ideas, comments. What are we seeing as far as the group is concerned, or ideas for next year?
Redo the fire section.
Okay, well, that's great. We need to. James mentioned like there's a way to fix that. Get the files so they're easy to.
I don't think that there's anything I can suggest other than my dumbass needs to read the manual. And
RTFM?
with my head full of so much useless knowledge, and then it's just like, okay, I got to read the manual. I can't have Mark here all the time, remoting into my computer, fixing my stupid plane for me all the damn time. Although I got to say a big shout out to Mark for at least being there and helping people. I mean, you have you've kind of, you know, put, so to speak, the air under a lot of people's wings as far as your assistance with helping folks. So I do appreciate that, and I just wanted to recognize you for that one.
You're welcome.
And
absolutely,
Steve's done a good job of at least, you know, not, you know, allowing people to berate and, you know, chide people as far as, you know, what they want to build or what they want to do with their airplanes. And there's a couple of guys in the group, I don't know if they're still there. I mean, there's shop talk and there's hazing, there's stuff like that. I understand that, but I mean, it gets to a point where, you know, at least there's nobody, you know, saying mean things that discourages anybody from trying the hobby. Because I ran into a couple of guys that were just like, oh, well, your builds are shit. And it's like, oh, you know what? I know it's shit. I know it. So what?
But does it fly?
No. Does it fly? Does it work? Yeah, it works. It flies. Okay, well, just because I'm not you doesn't mean I should do it your way, kind of thing. And that's just the way I've always been. Is just you know, I build, create, destroy, and fail, and that's just the way life is. You know, and just. But then again, there's constructive criticism. There's like, you know, there's another guy in the group. I don't know if he's here or not, but he built a stick plane. And,
yeah, it's Jelkins. Yeah, we were. Is James Jelkins?
He just crashed yesterday, I think.
I'm terrible with names, but he built it out of a damn yardstick. And it's like, you know what?
That's Jelkin. Yeah, Jelkin. Yeah, he's out here in Los Angeles.
If you can build a plane out of a damn yardstick, then what's to stop you from, you know, that's how I got into the hobby. It's like how that's where, you know, the cost prohibitiveness of it, what I discussed earlier, has gotten so low that, you know, now you can get, you know, the flight controller is probably easily going to be the most expensive component of that airplane. And
but if you fly quads, you already have them.
Yeah.
Well, that I was going to get to your point too. I think I'm the last holdout as far as anybody in INAV that's never flown a quad.
Yeah. I've never flown a quad either, so just two of us.
I've got a buddy that tries to get me into them all the time. Hey, he gave me a frame. It's still sitting in the fucking box. So that was 2 years ago. So I mean, I think it's good to have innovation, people who actually want to try something and that have that drive and to squash that drive is a lot like having your child come to you with a piece of art that they made at school, and you tell them it's shit, you pull it off the fridge and throw it in the garbage. That's kind of the equivalent of it, you know, where, you know, don't squash that drive or that curiosity that somebody has. And I think that's where Steve's done a good job in the group, at least, is maintaining people of, you know, encouraging everybody to do that kind of thing. And I think it's just a positive attitude altogether. And, you know, I try to, you know, lay low as far as, you know, not posting any videos or things like that, just because I just don't want to draw attention to myself. But a lot of guys, if you want to post your videos of doing stuff you shouldn't, then I wish you the best of luck.
How about yourself, Darren?
To be honest, I think the group is just going really well. Yeah, completely agree with what Jesse's saying about, you know, however people get into it is how they get into it, how they fly is how they fly, and it should always be encouraged. And any help that people need, yeah, it's definitely worth helping people. But yeah, again, what Mark said, the search button is brilliant. And read the fucking manual. Yeah, that's the biggest gripe is
my buttons are still set up.
Brilliant, that G1 button. But yeah,
I'm really surprised that Mark hasn't told me to read the fucking manual yet.
It's every week someone's like, what GPS should I get? Like, please just use the search.
Jesse, the only reason why I helped you was I want to buy this plane myself, so I know how to set up and not to crash.
Well, alrighty. Well, as long as you can get it, as long as you're doing it for your own benefit, I don't care.
Jason, what do you think?
I know. I think that the group's been going really well. Especially, as I put it to, is it Jenny from Brain FPV?
Yes.
That we're the flight test of INAV, basically. We are the flight test of INAV.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's that everybody's just there to get other people in the air,
right?
Which is really good. And yeah, no, I'm in agreement with the whole read the search button, use the search button, because while I'm at work, I'm typing the same thing over and over. Yes, you can put return to home and nav launch on the same side of the same switch.
Yeah, so the idea also is if you're looking at buying a plane, like sometimes I'll see a plane come up and it's on sale at Banggood, and they're like, wow, it's 80% off. I should buy this. I don't need another plane, but I should buy it. And I'll see like, wait, before I do that, let me go into the group, and then I'll see like, there's like 10 people have bought this plane and I don't like it or whatever. And they're like, okay, good. Well, this is one to stay away from. That's why it's 80% off. But when you have questions, I know what it's like to be stuck. When my first experience with INAV was the information was out there, but it was all over the place. It was on YouTube. It was in old chat posts and things like that.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Yeah. So what I would do is I would literally start building something, and then I get stuck, and then I'd spend the next 2 weeks looking for answers. And what we have is something where you can get the answer in 5 minutes if someone the most important thing is that how you phrase the question is what kind of answer you're going to get back.
Yeah.
If you say I have a problem with my flight controller, my plane doesn't fly very well, then that gives us no information. We have nothing to do with it. But if you're specific and say, and I bring this up because we get people time and time again, by the time we unpack what you're asking, we're 10 posts. Excuse me. We're 10
threads in.
Yeah, we're 10 threads in, and everyone's given up on your post. And the guy who could really help you the most is the guy who is probably on a lunch break, who, if you phrase the question right in the first post, he would have saw it and he would have gotten back to you probably within 20 minutes, and you would have had your question answered. But I mean, literally, there are guys who have. I'll watch in the group that they'll phrase a real general question and no one responds to it. And, you know, and I try to go back and just explain and listen, you got to kind of ask your question, give us more details, ask it again. Maybe you'll get a response next time.
But
I'll see posts like that too, and I'll be like, okay, what flight controller, what motor, what version, what do you know, GPS, all this other stuff. What, you know, you got to get kind of specific. So that's what I'll just kind of go through. And it's like, you know, he says, just like he wishes he had an auto reply button that's just like, you know, you push the button. You're like, okay, I've said this a million times before. You should just copy and paste it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to see more of that next year because I have a feeling that what's happening now is that, well, you know, people are starting to. You look in the group map. That's something that's kind of cool. We never even mentioned the group map, but bring it up. We literally have people. I don't care where you live in the world. There's usually someone within a couple of hours of you who knows how to fly INAV. So if you really need help, and that's, I think, the biggest issue if you're first in planes, especially coming from a quad or something else like that, is that someone needs to look your plane over, make sure you got the CG right, make sure everything's going the right way before you actually toss it. And so, you know, it might be one of those things where you look in the group map and you say, okay, there's a guy 2 hours away. Let me write to him, ask him if I can bring my plane over to him and have him help me launch it. It's certainly a better use of your time than building that plane, crashing it, and then writing about, you know, one guy wrote in, I got the S800, I launched it 30 times and never flew, and I finally stomped on it.
Yeah. Guy Strauss.
I've been there. I have been there.
Guy Strauss just wrote a comment on Facebook. The INAV information exists, but don't forget it's an open source, which advances every day, and information you read from 6 months ago might not be relevant today. That's definitely true. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
I think the basics, like the tuning stuff and all that, doesn't change that fast. Especially the tuning guide we have in the group is from, I think it was 2.1 when I made this. And there hasn't changed a lot of stuff. If you are coming from 1.7 to 2.3, then it's a total difference, because you have the feed forward now and a lot of other stuff that has changed. But yeah, especially when it comes to features, then it changes every few months.
So to get started into INAV, I think all of us had a different journey on how we got here. And so a couple of you guys started off at quads. I don't know, Darren, how'd you start off?
Well, I've only really been flying for about, I guess, 2 years now. So I started line of sight, and some of the guys there had some mini Talons and said, "Oh, do you want to go?" So they stuck some goggles on me, got it up in the air, handed the controller over, and as soon as I finished with it, I ordered one. It's one of those. It's as Glenn was saying, you stick the goggles on, you're in a different world, and it's really addictive. But the mini Talon's still in a box behind me. But I got an S800 as well, and that's the first FPV plane I had with INAV, and I think that was around 1.7.
So as we're getting started, where the idea is, when you first, if you just decide, this is what I want to do. I think we got a lot of people who kind of come into the group and they're like, they would check it out. They're not exactly certain. We don't make it really simple as to here's where all the information is. And, you know, we try to put that out there, but I think realistically what it's going to take is that you're going to need to buy a plane. You're going to need to get in your head that this thing's not going to get together in a weekend, and INAV is not going to work perfectly, and no one's going to build it for you. Mm-hmm. We're going to get the plane together. You start putting the gear, read the manuals, learn how to put the flight controller together. It might blow up on you. Jason and I, from personal experience, can tell you what it's like. What the magic smoke story looks like after spending an evening working on a flight controller, watching the plane go up in smoke hidden right in front of you. It's just a special feeling, like the birthday of your kids. It's something you'll never forget. You know, there's a lot of failure and frustration along the way, but it's kind of like, I think that the hardest thing to convince people is once you get that plane in the air, there's nothing else like it. And everything that you did to get that plane in the air is worth it. I mean, it's so worth it that struggle. I don't care. Get mad. You can get on the group. You can scream at everyone. We don't care. We've seen this before. We're going to quit. I'm going to stomp on all this. I'm going to, whatever. But by the time you just keep at it. And I think, it's like one of those things in life that something, I don't know, it's true of you guys are from all over the world, but what happens when you're coming of age here in the United States, you basically, the schools are pretty good at telling you what you're good at and what you're not good at. And once you get out of school, it's like you don't want to hear anything about what you're not good at anymore. You're completely done with that. So the notion of like, I got to read stuff, I got to struggle, I got to fail, that doesn't really appeal to a lot of people. But this is one of those things that there's no place we can send you where you can buy this stuff and get the plane going by itself. This is something you have to earn every step of the way. It's also very rewarding because once you figure out how to get this going, it also helps with other parts of your life as well. Like, for example, Mark, we force him to speak English even though he wants to speak German all the time. What happened at work? He got a promotion, right?
Yeah, it definitely helped me by the how's it called in English? Yeah, the talk to my new boss. How's it called? The interview. It helped me. It really helped me with the interview to talk to a lot of people in English, so I get some routine. And yeah. By the way, you asked Darren before how he get into the hobby. My start in the hobby started with a 2 weeks lasting cold.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was at home, I was on the couch, I was bored, so I watched YouTube all day, and then I found a video about a $150 cheap 3D printer. I bought it, and then I just didn't know what to do with it, so I started to printing planes. That's how I started the hobby.
That's insane. How about yourself, Jesse?
I think Jesse's had a technical problem.
Oh, we just dropped him. Yep.
Oh well, bye, Jesse. Thanks. It was great having him. But okay. How about yourself? Was it? Is he coming back? Okay, I guess we lost him. Well, Jason, how about yourself? How did you start?
So he will ping me if he's ready to join.
Yeah, like I started to say earlier, I basically got in from quads, and then, but I wanted to build. I saw a bunch of videos on YouTube, a bunch of Alex's stuff, and a bunch of other guys. And I wanted to build a wing, and the first wing I built, and I actually built 2 of them, was the Red 20 RC Nano Wing 2, and basically it was built similar to flight test style Versa wing, and I threw INAV right in them right off the bat. And then I built 2 FT Goblins, and that is the perfect INAV platform if you want to build a folded, like a foam board wing. I mean, not scratch wing, build. But plane. It's perfect. Yeah. It is an INAV platform because it's got that perfect upper deck that just fits all your components, and you're ready to go. And then I started cutting my own. I built a hot wire, and then I've probably cut 20 to 30 wings by now, but I have 8 or 9 of them flying at the moment, all with INAV. But it's fun.
That's awesome. All right, and then so we're gonna ask Jesse. He's back. How'd you get started with the planes? I think he kind of alluded to it earlier, though, right? Just kind of like you started getting. You started with fixed wing, I guess. You started with the line of sight first before you got into INAV?
Well, the thing is I've been soldering since I was 7 years old. So just a little backstory on my life here. Didn't grow up with having a whole lot. So we used to go back to the thrift stores and find old reel-to-reel tape players, things like that. And I'd bust them apart and build new things out of them and blow them up. So I was pretty used to the entire suck at it until you succeed type of thing, which was what Steve was saying earlier. You're not going to get into it, and you're not just going to, I mean, you might roll the dice and you might get that lucky number where you just get right off the bat. You're
right.
Nobody's born with the golden remote in their hand. I mean, but the thing is, you just got to go through progressions of failure, and if you're not scared to fail, I mean, it's like with any team sports or anything like that. or if you're interested in something, you just don't immediately quit and give up. But I've been there where I've had some really crap days where I've smashed my remote out of rage.
Oh wow!
Just because it wasn't working. But then again, it was only a $50 remote because I was using FlySky. That's how I kind of got into it. I got into it because FlySky was cheap. It was a decent remote. It does its job. So if you're willing to go into the low end stuff and escalate it from there, and invest the time and the money into it, then I would suggest doing that, because it's a lot easier to buy foam. It's a lot cheaper to get the motors, off the internet. You can get cheap motors with cheap props, and just build something that resembles an airplane. And if it doesn't work, back to the drawing board. Just suck at it enough until you actually get something that works. And then when you get something that works, then, like you were saying, Steve, it's one of those moments where you feel the best gratification you can in the world. It's like getting the grand slam home run, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, and you've sucked at this for so long that you actually get that reward. And it's actually an adrenaline rush, and it makes it makes you want to go farther, and it adds to the drive. But people just don't want to deal with failure, and so that's the only message I can give to people is go out there and suck, go out there and fail, build, create, destroy, and remember that failure is always an option. And if you're not willing to do that, then you don't want to succeed. What the hell is going on over there?
Someone makes strange noises.
Yeah, is there someone have a printer on or something? It went away. Huh.
Strange.
Government.
That's weird. All right, cool. That's okay. Well, yeah, that's kind of the whole point. There's like, it was one of the things that brought up first when the group first got started. It's like, let's not be afraid of failure.
Even start with the $10 gyros. These are great if you don't want to get into it. That even the $16 200 milliwatt eSheen BTXs, and thankfully I was gifted these, but I started out with just a cell phone receiver too. So I had mine set up on a tripod with a phone holder, and I had one of those cell phone or like the OTG receivers you get off the eBay.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I started with one of those, and I mean, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but I was already flying line of sight at that point. And then after I was just like, okay, I can't tell which angle I'm at, because when you're banking in a turn, your wing stays like this, and then you go, okay, which side am I on as it banks? So you get kind of confused as to which side you're on, unless you have lights and that kind of thing, any sort of markers. But with the OTG receivers, at least, I was able to say, okay, I'm in a turn. I know I'm in a turn. You can look down at the OTG on your phone, which are like $20 at the very most, and you can say, okay, well, I'm in a left-hand bank. I didn't have any OSD at that time or anything like that. I was actually building like the flight test style camera pods. I don't think I have one here in front of me, but I would take just regular. See if I can fish one out real quick. But I would just take cameras with video transmitters, and I'd put them on. Oh, here's one. I just make one of these to strap to my airplane, like at least one to strap to all my.
Then you just move them around from plane to plane, right?
But yeah, from plane to plane. So it's just a basic kind of setup as far as a modular type of thing, and it worked fairly well. And then as soon as I started doing more and more research, and my buddy bought me an AR wing and got me into the flight controllers. He's the same buddy Timon who's trying to get me into quads. He was trying to show me all this other stuff that they were doing, and it was just like, well, it's cheap, and you can get into it for this much money, and it's not very, cost prohibitive.
I was going to say, if you're teaching someone to fly, the angle mode, you get them up about 100 meters in the sky, put the goggles on them, make sure you have a set of goggles for yourself, which is a good reason why you can buy a new set of goggles next year. You can one for to train someone, one to keep for yourself. Put them in the angle mode. They can't do anything wrong with it. There's no way they can really bring the plane down if you're keeping an eye on them. And if they go too far away, just return to home on and then bring them back. It's just the safest way to keep that's about the only real great use I can think of for that mode, other than we use that for the horizon mode as well.
Speaking of getting too far away, how many of you are generally going into full long range, so the serious stuff?
No.
Not yet, officially.
No.
I wanted longer range, so I did this to my fly sky. I just modded the remote.
That's a
But
Mark thing.
I haven't. Yeah, well, I didn't see it from Mark, but additionally, I was going to test these are supposed to be like 16 dBi dual band, and I haven't tested these, but I'm going to give those. Well, the thing is with my small plane, the little darling I was talking about earlier, the SPX, it has an F4V3 on it, and from what I can't get failsafe to work on it for the life of me. So, but really? I was flying my mini AR wing with the F411, and I did lose RC link, and at least it came up on the screen, RC link lost RTH and failsafe. So I'm gonna switch everything over to the F411s just because that F4V3 just doesn't want to do it with the fly sky.
Huh? It's interesting.
There's a little
I don't know
trick. What receiver are you using?
I'm using the F6B, the little micro ones. I think I got one here.
That's strange.
But yeah, I can't remember on that point if I had set it up iBus or if I had set it up with SBus. I think it's set up to SBus because everything else that I'm using is set up iBus. Let me see if I can pull one out here. I know I got another one. Not this one. Well, I might be lying. Sorry, guys. But anyway, the last one I had.
The Omnibus F4 F3 is a great flight controller. I mean, not great, but it's good enough. It's like $15 now to buy those things.
What flight controller?
It's the Omnibus F4 V3.
Okay, as soon as
you just have to watch the Becks.
As soon as I hear Omnibus, I start.
You can't see it in there. It's buried.
I just want to puke. Sorry.
One more time, you want to vomit at my wire management?
I mean, really, in my experience, I never used an Omnibus for myself. A friend of me did smoked 2 flight controllers, and every time I see some guy, no matter if it's in the fixed wing group or the FPV Racer Germany group or whatever, they fly wings. They talk about reboots and crashes and burned flight controllers or brownouts, and always it's an Omnibus. Always.
Oh, it might be those Omnibus. There's the F4.
He always craps out as well.
The F4 Pro.
You have to do with those F4 clones that are coming out. I remember having a thread with you a while back with the F4 clone that I had that I couldn't get power to the servo rail because I didn't have my Beck plugged in. Yeah, I didn't have my Beck plugged into the right thing, but it was feeding power to the rest of the board, which was perplexing. So I think I'm just going to stick. I know works, and that's just the F411 works the best for me. So I'm just going to keep with.
Yeah, I think the worst thing with the Omnibus is it's confusing people because it has 3-pin servo connectors on it. You can just plug into the servos directly, but the BEC is not made to handle the current some servos can draw.
Yeah.
And as soon as you add an additional BEC and you do not cut the traces for the 5 volt, you will then brown out or burn your onboard BEC because it gets a feedback. I think there are some Omnibus versions, 1 or 2 versions, the V3 I think, it has a diode. So you don't feed back the 5 volt from the BEC into the flight controller, but not all of them have it. So they plug it in. It may work on the bench, but as soon as you are in flight and you have fluctuations in the current or in the voltage of the BEC, you will instantly brown out your flight controller.
So speaking of flight controllers, what's your go-to flight controller? Let's go around robin here. What's the one that if you're going to put one in a general fixed wing plane, let's say a 2-channel like a Delta Wing, like a AR Wing?
My personal favorite would be mine would be the F411 as well, just because it's versatile. I haven't had any issues with the F411s as far as performance-wise. But you get the that small plane has the F4 V3 in it, but I think it's an actual authentic omnibus before they discontinued them.
Yeah.
Everything else, my Cub's got a 405. My other wing's got a 405. That one's got an F411. That one's got an F405, and same with that one too. So
how about Darren? What do you think? What's your favorites?
I don't know about really got a favorite. It's whatever suits the wing it's going in. Most of my stuff has probably got the FC Hub W with a standard 405 or 722 flight control on it.
So it's a Maytech F405 standard is what you're using with the F chub cable
with the wing PDB, basically. Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of 411s in smaller builds, and yeah, they work fine. The only limit really is the UART. So it would have been great if I had one extra UART or something like that.
Right.
411 WSE. It has one UART more.
So there we go.
And it's even smaller. So Glenn has put one in his Dart 250.
How about you, Jason? What's your favorite?
If I'm buying,
yes,
like if I have to buy it, it'd be a 411. Well, now it'd be the SC. But in most of my stuff, it's all the quad 405s with extra Becks or the oh god, you said it before, the F chub, the plate,
the board.
F405 standard. Yeah. F405. Yeah. So that's my go-to is the F405 standard. I've figured out how to put those together with flying wings. They work pretty well. I only have one F405 wing, and the F405 standard also now will take, as Darren mentioned, there's a different spec they came up with, which I'm sorry, PDB, and that is the PDB that actually has all the servo ports on it. So it's about $5 or $6 more. It's worth it. You don't have. I think he's holding it one up right now. There it is, right there. You can see it. It looks like an F405 wing board by the time it all goes together. But the big advantage is that you actually have a separate PDB from the flight controller. And once they go together very easily with that the ribbon cable is just 1 minute to put that thing in and it's ready to go. So a lot less wiring you have to do on that.
I like the fact they're easy to work on.
What about 2020s? Has anybody put 2020 the minis in any of their wings yet?
The 2020.
Instead of a full size. Yeah, like
the 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter. So you're talking like the omnibus. God, I know you hate that word. They have
Maytech has them.
Yeah, Maytech. They have the F405 mini, right? F722
got like
mini.
34 footprint to it. 34 millimeter by 34 millimeter footprint.
Yeah, no, but these are only like a 20 by 20 center to center.
Okay.
They're for like a micro, like the micro drones, but for something that's like, say, maybe like a 600 mil or smaller, it would be like really good because you have such a small footprint on your FC. It takes
that's a question. Well, all of a sudden, all the interest in the sub 250. So I guess Zode is coming out with they have the Dart, but they can come out with more of these little sub 250s in the.
It's regulation because a lot of countries are doing the 250 grams. They have to be registered, so everybody's going sub 250, so they have to register them.
Right, but I mean, how much distance can you really get with these things?
Nano Goblin, you can easily get sub 250, and you can go miles on it. Lithium ion battery pack.
Oh,
it's a really, really efficient plane.
That's the Strix Nano Goblin.
Scared of.
Yeah, that's an amazing plane. It's as I understand it, you have to launch that at like half throttle, otherwise it will torque roll.
To be honest, I never really had any problems. I just set it up with INAV auto launch and just threw it. It was easy enough to launch. I could launch it sat in my chair and just throw it, and it would just go up.
I don't know if you guys.
Brilliant plane.
One of the group members put a video up. It's a guy lives there he drove up to the visitor center where people go to look at the Matterhorn, not the one at Disneyland, but the real Matterhorn. And he shows up, gets one of those strict nano goblins out of the back of his trunk, puts the thing out there, throws it, takes it to the very top of the Matterhorn, gets video of it, comes back down. It was such an awesome video. I mean, if you don't want to buy a Strix Nano Goblin after seeing that, then I don't know what would make you want to buy one. It's just the coolest thing ever.
I mean, I'd get half an hour out of mine on a 2S lithium ion, and that was full throttle for the whole half hour. And I was not running them down. That was only running down to about 3.2 volts. It still had plenty left in it.
By the way, speaking of small flight controllers, what I plan to do in the future, but not with this one, as it has a burned up onboard BEC for the electronics, but I have this one. It's a brushed flight controller, and the funny thing is, what you can do with these tiny brushed flight controller, you just desolder the transistor that goes to the motor output, and then you get a standard servo output out of it. So you just glue a little 5-volt BEC down here, stack it with the flight controller, and you have the smallest INAV flight controller you can get, with OSD integrated.
Wow.
Brilliant.
That's kind of cool. Get that together. Oh, cool, man. All right, well, we're kind of... one topic I don't know if we had time for or not. I just wanted to find out, we're running out of actual planes. I've been noticing across. You're saying, Darren, saying that the Strix Nano Goblin's coming back in the inventory here pretty quickly, but there's been issues, supply issues. Is pretty much. I mean, Hobby King is now back to having virtually no planes once again, and I'm starting to notice the Zods are starting to run out of stock at Banggood, which is not a good sign either. We're in the middle of winter right now. We should be fat with all this stuff. I mean, have you guys been around for a few years? Have you seen the inventory like 3 years ago? What we used to have, they would at this time of year, everything was on sale. They had too much of it. But now we're looking at next year, we're going to be pretty light on planes, things that we can buy. People are going to be interested in, and so we're probably going to be talking about, your actual 3D printing planes and making things out of foam board and things like that. Because there's just, you can still get a AR wing. I get they make those by the truckload, but the odds and ends, I'm kind of worried that we're not going to see a lot of really cool planes coming out next year because of the supply issues of what's going on in China.
Well, I mean, I have enough planes, and if I get any more, I think I might get in trouble. So I think what I have to do is I have to go through my inventory and at least fly some. I've probably got 4 or 5 of them that haven't even seen airtime yet, and just crash and rebuild type thing. So I think I'm good for now. But for the people that are trying to get into it, that may be an issue. And if anybody wants a Skyhawk V2, hit me up because I'll give it to you because it's a hunk of dew. that thing flies like it looks.
So you have I can imagine. I know Darren has what is it, the Talon, the mini Talon that's still in a box?
That's been in a box since October 2017.
Wow.
Damn.
Really?
Yeah. I just can't make my mind up on what components to put in it. That's I think of something, and then something else comes along. It's like, cause I was trying to make it the best thing I could.
Shall I make you a list?
But you just never end up building it. That's the problem. So it's getting done this winter if I have the time. Because I got 2 F5B gliders I picked up today to build. Loads of other little projects to finish off. So if I get the time, that will get built this winter.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I think we've entertained people enough. I really want to thank everyone for being in the group. Jason, thank you so much for getting up really early and also for helping moderate. Yeah, Jason was up at 5 a.m. this morning. What is it, like 7 a.m. right now?
Yeah. It's time to go get coffee.
I have one last topic. What are your winter projects?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's summer here.
Okay, what are your next winter projects?
Yeah, how come it's summer only in Australia? It's winter in the rest of the world.
We have summer year round, basically.
They are also driving on the wrong side of the road, so.
It's just like
Do the toilets actually do flush the wrong direction, or is that just a myth?
No, it does. No, it goes the wrong way.
Okay. I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
So what's your winter project, Jason?
I have another spec wing that's half built, that's been half built for a month. But really it's going to be getting the CNC up and running so I can start cutting some new designs. Yeah, I want to start, I want to build, I'm asking the missus, fingers crossed, for Crossfire for Christmas. Okay. So I want to get the Crossfire in, so then I can build I want to build a proper long range wing.
Cool.
I'm wondering how you can have a half built spec wing because it's only 4 parts sticking together.
No. So the whole thing is, so it's all built, like it's all painted in and everything. It's just ready to have electronics dropped in and get it lammed. Yeah. But it's one of those where I have 3 of the other ones flying and I haven't wrecked them yet. So it's like, yeah. Life gets in the way.
Keep it safe.
Actually, it's been too much racing. Well, because the thing is, you have to realize, so not only with the wings, flying the wings, there's 4 quad chapters all within 2-hour drive of where I'm at. So we have races every weekend, plus we race car park every Wednesday night. So there's just racing going on all the time. And I keep trying to drag every guy that I race with. I'm like, hey, come fly wings, come fly wings, come fly wings, come fly wings. So it's working pretty well. We got a bunch of them on board, so that's good.
Awesome. Jason, how about yourself? What's your winter project?
Oh,
Jason.
Jesse?
Oh, sorry, Jesse. I'm looking. Jesse.
Oh, me? Well, seeing how I've got enough on my plate already, I think I'm just going to go whittle through my planes and figure out which ones I need to do. I've got this, let me pull it off the wall here. I got this plane, it's a 1991 Airtronics. It used to be a nitro plane, but I've converted it into electric.
Airtronics. Yeah, that's a...
So what I can, the person that sold it to me said that it never flew. So it's still in pristine condition, but I've put a rather large 0.55 motor on it. It weighs quite a bit.
Wow.
And I'm going to be running it on 2 4S cells. And I've got the, everything else as far as the video transmitter and OLED screen. I really, basically all I have to do is just go through my inventory, make sure it's all good, make sure I can do some ground taxi runs on them. I've got a couple F405s on the way that I'm gonna put one into the dual EDF here.
Oh wow.
Let's go. I didn't have any sort of telemetry on that when I first flew it, but what I could estimate was I was getting 50 miles an hour out of that plane with the wingspan that it has. So
that's pretty, yeah.
And then the tube plane, that's my other one too. The weather here has just been shit. We get these temperature inversions because we live in a valley, and so what happens is the cold air sinks to the bottom, and then the pollution from the air gathers the water particulates, and it creates just a dense layer of fog that just blankets the valley. So it's literally probably, I would say, 200 feet visibility during the winter time. So, but then the nice thing is the wind is always calm, but you have to wait for that temperature inversion to clear out in order to actually see anything. So I'm kind of just fogged in at the moment until that starts to lift out. So, and then I've got the Optera. So I bought that on Black Friday, much to my girlfriend's chagrin. So
another plane.
Yeah. At least you can't accuse me of cheating,
You can't afford to cheat.
I have a hard enough time pleasing one woman. I can't imagine trying to try more than that.
Darren, what about yourself? The winter project.
Yeah, I mean the main one will be the two F5Bs, which non-INAV, so not really interesting. But no, they're beautiful. Just came in from the Czech Republic last week. It's carbon reinforced fiberglass fuselage. Yeah, really nice high quality kits and cheap. So they're the main two that I need to get done. But then I've got loads of little bits like finish off the Sky Hunter.
Oh yeah.
Get the motor on this, get that working because that's one that's burnt out. F1 wing, I need to laminate the wings and then that will fly, but that should be interesting.
Oh yeah,
quite a big motor.
On. Yeah,
very big motor for that. Yeah.
So go for the 200.
Well, I'm hoping about around 170. Yeah. Because it's low kV, so. But it's a big prop pushing a small plane.
8S.
And picked that up the other day, so that'll be fun.
Oh, I want one. I really want one.
There's lots of little bits to get done, and the mini Talon if I get around to it. But yeah, plenty to get on with.
What's your winter project, Mark?
My winter project. So it will not fly, but it will help me flying. So. I think
he's excited about this.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Wait a second, the charger is connected.
Everybody's got to pull out the big guns, and then Mark shows us all up.
It's partially disassembled right now, but I think a lot of few people know the U360 GTS tracker, right?
So your winter project is the English manual.
Maybe something in this area will come, yeah. But I was not very happy with the size, transportation, and all that stuff. So, a friend of mine, Albert, who also made the LEDs for my Talon GT and all that stuff, we started to construct a new case for it, and it will look like this. Wait a second, I have to share my screen for you guys. Share. So, you see it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it will look like this, the antenna tracker. In the overall dimensions, we try to shrink it down to 75 by 75 by 100 millimeters. And this is just the design Albert made, and I started to do the technical construction a few days ago. And yeah, this will be our winter project, and we are hoping to get it running well. I was also talking to Raul, the developer of the U360 GTS software and the original case and all that stuff, and we will try to figure out a few things about it. The biggest concern is that the compass will work in this close, tiny enclosure, but if it works, this thing will be awesome.
Is that using the same size servos for the tracking? So we'd be able to carry the same sort of weight of antennas?
Yeah, it will use 50-gram servos.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah,
awesome.
Really cool.
Yeah, that's my winter project, and I also just started building another original case tracker for another friend. The first parts arrived today, and I will have something to do till January, and then in January I will go to Austria, long range flying the Alps.
That sounds horrible. Sounds like the worst vacation ever, going to Austria, flying in the Alps.
Yeah, I will bring 3 planes and 1 quad with me, and let's see how many I will bring back.
You go skiing as well?
No skiing. We are already in the valley, and we are RC hobby pilots. We are lazy by natural, so we won't climb up the hill to go skiing.
I was going to add, Steve, there are worse hobbies to have in the wintertime. One of them is ice fishing. So if you really hate your wife, you should probably take up ice fishing because she's never going to follow you there.
Oh man, that's
and you
true.
can fly a plane while you fish.
You can do that
nothing
too.
but runway.
You could go ice fishing, I guess.
Yeah.
Ice flying, ice fishing at the same time.
Actually, it's a good idea. I mean, we have INAV. If a fish if a fish is pulling, you just put it into a position hold and then.
Yeah.
Yep. I did have one idea with one of my airplanes that somebody had asked me about dropping their father's ashes out of my airplane, and so I was thinking about trying to concoct something to that, but they haven't really been committed to the idea, and I haven't been around to test it too much as far as, you know, developing a payload release system or anything like that. So, I mean,
the Apprentice 15ES has that built into it. So a little Spectrum thing. If you find someone that has a Spectrum, they have a payload release that you can get for it.
Or a jumper.
I'd rather get. Well, the thing is I'm going to upgrade my Fly Sky eventually, and I'm want to go to a Horus or the Jumper T10. So I'll keep you guys posted on that.
I have the T16.
You like the T16?
Well,
Yeah,
the problem that's holding me up the most is I have yet to read the INAV manual. So if I get into OpenTX, I'm going to be calling Mark a lot more.
Well, our group build works with those.
Mm-hmm.
So it works with the Horus, with the Jumper 16, right? So have you tried that at all, Jason, with that?
No, not yet. I basically I just plowed through and set my own. But going from, because I went from a DX8, but it was a V1. So I wanted to eventually go to Crossfire, and rather than going to a Tyrannus and then getting Crossfire module and doing all that, it would leave me with all the Spectrum, like all the Lemon RXs and things like that, not being used. So when the Jumper came out, I jumped on board with the Jumper T16, and I've done all the upgrades. So now it's basically a T16 Pro. So the gimbal mod, the internal receiver, all that stuff, and it works fantastic. I can't complain. The switches are really I find the switches are really robust. The Hall gimbals, once I put the Hall gimbals in, it felt no different than my DX8. The battery life on a decent set of the 18650s is actually really good, and you wouldn't think it would be with the colored screen, but I get way better battery life than on my Spectrum. And the range and everything is fine too. I haven't had any range issues.
Huh. Sounds awesome. Cool.
Yeah, the only thing that hiccups me is like just all the Fly Sky receivers. Everything I have is Fly Sky. So if I were to
you could use them.
Yeah, that was going to be my question for down the road. But so you know, at least that's covered. I can get at least a Fly Sky protocol out of that, either the Jumper or the Horus.
Yeah, and I think I will also ask Darren a lot of questions in the spring when I get my Jumper T16. So we have to reset up my Tyrannus profile.
Yeah, it should work straight out the bat, but yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
It works really good.
On my X9D, I just copy the plane, rename it, and I'm done. So I'm not sure if I can just copy it over to the T16.
Yeah, no, you can. You use the
companion.
You use the Horus setting for the Jumper, and then you just copy it over. But the thing is, they're in the process. There's a release candidate already out of actual OpenTX for the Jumper. So once that comes out, then it's dope.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. All bets are off. Yeah. It's anyway, 1 for 1.
It will be released in April or May. So until then,
by then it'll be 1 for 1.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's the radiator to get, the T16, then around April or May, if you want an extra rate.
So I can use it for all my crafts, no matter if I have a Fly Sky or Free Sky or then Crossfire in it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So what is that radio selling for with all the upgrades in it?
So I can only speak Australian. Down here it's 260, and that's up for the Pro.
Okay.
I don't know what that is in the US.
What's
I know it's a lot cheaper.
Do you use euros in Australia or dollary dues? How does that work?
They're Australian dollars, but it's just our dollar is very weak compared to the U.S. dollar.
There was a Simpsons reference in there. I'm sorry.
It's about $200, I would say, in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as soon as I get ready to trade up, I know a few people that I could count on. So that's what's good about this group.
You start selling off the old planes you don't want. When people are desperate for foam next year, all the new pilots, so you can kind of like could pay for this new stuff. And then the other thing that's big coming out next year, one of the big things that we were supposed to get a preview of today but didn't work out, is the OSD is going to be changing. So we're going to have these graphic OSDs coming out, and the idea behind those is that they say it will work with any flight controller, and it will go between your flight controller and your VTX. So you have to have an open UART in order to work with it, but it's going to be another board. But supposedly you'll have these really beautiful OSDs where it's all graphical. It's going to be gorgeous when you're flying INAV. If that works for you, if that's something you really look forward to.
If they make it that tiny like FreeSky has done it, then I don't matter if there's an extra board inside. I think the FreeSky OSD board, only the single board, is the size of a SIM card.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so I think what they are basically is a lot of the technology out of the cell phones. So it's like Darren's wife is talking to him, like, okay, just a minute, honey, I'll be in bed soon. Come on. And with that, we should probably think about wrapping this up.
Yeah, she wants pizza.
Mine was telling me it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago, type of thing.
Yeah. And Jason and I are getting coffee. That's
right. Absolutely. Yep.
You guys are having pizza. Coffee. That's the thing.
My missus isn't home, so it's like I'm going for coffee.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the good thing about this group. We're going 24 hours a day because we're worldwide. So if you have a question, it might take you. Sometimes the right person has to wake up or see it with the question, but they'll get to you. So, I do want to thank you. Yeah.
As I said to you before, you planned 90 minutes, right? Now we have double that.
Where are we at right now? I don't want to know. How long has this been?
Yeah, 3 hours now.
3 hours.
3 hours? Oh my gosh. So no one's watching us right now. That's what you're telling me. Well, that's awesome. All right, there goes the day.
Yeah, I've got to get going here. I'm getting called by folks.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I want to definitely thank Jason for being a moderator.
Thank you.
Yeah, Darren, thank you so much for this build and the continued work on our open source OpenTX build for the group. And I use the thing every single time. Every time I go up flying, I'm using your OpenTX build. So I really appreciate it. Yeah, Mark, cool. I can never thank you enough for what you've done for this group as far as just all the help you've given us with the manuals and just the support of the people and new ideas, and it just keeps it interesting. And of course, Jesse keeps things interesting and fun, and he always has interesting new builds and new ideas. But I think go ahead.
I just like being the most ignorant guy in the group that you gave an opportunity to have a voice. That's all.
that P-51 wing is awesome. I have to say that. That's absolutely
awesome. Was awesome.
Was, yeah.
I folded that thing up like just the plane it was before. So,
But at least you got it flying. That's pretty cool. Just to get that thing flying even once.
Yeah, it was cool the once. But, that's just my life. I love to just wreck shit. So I'm not. The part of the builds that enthralls me the most is building it and crash assessment. I mean, that's one of those things. Okay, well, where did I screw up? What did I do wrong? My mind goes nonstop of just, people think that I have a negative perspective on life. It's like, no, I don't have a negative perspective. I just think of the things that can go wrong before they do, and I point them out, and they're like, oh, why do you have to be so negative? And then when that happens, I'm just like, okay, see? Anyway, yeah, I'm the most optimistic pessimist you could probably find.
Yeah, you get that tube plane going, and that thing's pretty awesome. It's
I haven't
made it yet, but it's put together.
It's ready to go. So I mean, if it fails, then it fails, and I'll laugh at it all the same. That's just the way I deal with life. I don't, deal with death or tragedy with, tears in my eyes. I just laugh at shit. I mean, even if it's unfortunate for me, and I think it's kind of a better example to set for your kids, to where, if you do something, you suck and you fail at it, you just laugh at it and be like, okay, let's go back.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I think people fail, then they give up, and then that teaches you nothing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If you want to ask what's right with me or what's wrong with me, maybe we should just start with what's right with me, and we can go through that shorter list.
Oh, don't say that. But what we're looking at as far as the group is concerned, we're just a bunch of guys who have not given up on this technology, and because we have not given up, it has paid us back big time. It's something we absolutely love. We cannot explain to people what it's like. Sometimes you put the goggles on. Like I had a buddy who's flown for years. He has a Cessna, actual Cessna he flies, through an RC for the last 40 years. I put the goggles on him. It was like nothing he's ever seen in his life. It was like the first thing he says, "Whoa!" Because you are way up there, and it's completely different kind of experience. And so we have that shared experience here, man. And you've really, you're out there doing it, and not afraid to fail, and showing the group, hey, I can think of crazy shit and I'm going to make it work. And that's kind of what we need in the group, are people who can sit there and say, I know this isn't supposed to work, but I'm going to make it work anyways.
That makes it fun.
It makes it fun. It's just been basically my whole life. It's just like build, create, destroy, fail, try again. And, part of it's therapeutic in the sense where it just shuts my mind off. I get to focus on one task, and if it goes to shit, then it goes to shit. But it's like I was describing with the guy with the yardstick plane. It's like, you can create a freaking airplane out of a wicker basket and a DeLorean if you're brave enough.
That would be interesting.
Steve, Dusty Nuts just made a nice comment on YouTube. He made intro, if you make a video sometime, and you should say, "Hi, I'm Steve Schlesinger, and you're gonna fly something today."
That's like that guy Jason. Hi, I'm Jason. You're gonna learn something today. Yeah.
Josh Bardwell.
Josh Bardwell, Josh Bardwell.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Josh Bardwell. You're gonna learn something today. Every video is always the same. Yeah. I'm Steve Schlesinger. You're gonna fly something today. That would be great, man. I appreciate that. That'll be it, man. Oh, well, that's great. And thank you so much. This group is just really, it's growing, but I think we're having a great time. And thanks for joining us in the first video. This has been an awesome experience. And hopefully people are still watching. If anyone's still watching, today is David Story's birthday. He's going to be 25 again. So happy birthday to David Story. Great guy. Lovely guy. His wife only allows him to build 10 planes, and you ask him, I only have 10 planes, and he'll also say, but I build a new plane every week.
That's pretty much how I live my life.
So he's a great guy. He's wonderful. The group in San Diego, if you ever come out to California, we have just like I live close to Disneyland, so that's where I'm at. But this group down in San Diego, they have like 400 members, and it's just like the most insane group of guys you've ever met. They are like some of the smartest people in the world in this group. Some of them fly that other platform we won't discuss, but we're he's like all INAV, and there's a group of those guys within that subdivision of that group that are part of our group, and we appreciate them being members. And everyone out there helps out in the comment section when people have questions. I mean, we get questions, I look at them like, I have no idea what the hell this guy's talking about or how to answer the question. And 5 minutes later, someone says, oh yeah, this is what you have to do. And like, oh, that worked perfectly for me. So yeah, I would definitely appreciate all the help that you're giving, and let's keep this going.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for helping out where you can.
Yeah.
Talk, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.